A magic circle impure while finished and the golden shield protecting the child vanished. This twofold magic circle was comparable to a Tier 4 spell, and this boy was overdoing it. His body wasn't enough to handle this skill, and it would hurt his soul. The process of soul disintegration might accelerate, and the recoil from this skill might even throw him far away. But those trivial things weren't important. The boy locked his eyes at the place the creature was, and the circle fired a beam of white light. A beam filled with pure power and something that can kill any powerful monster in an instant. In the unusually tranquil jungle filled with booms of the same origin, a different explosion shook the earth itself. Boom! As if a higher creature showed his wreath, the unreal sound killed small creatures. Ears started bleeding, and trees shook from their core. The fluctuations cracked the earth. The eyes of the creature were looking down at the kid with hunger. For the first time, showed fear. Yes, fear. Something unexpected had happened in this place and the roles had been reversed for just a brief moment. The creature was hit by a powerful beam of light, and it was shot back many yards away. Many yards away. And the boy's corpse was thrown many kilometers away from the resulting recoil of this powerful skill. It threw the carnage creature away, but that demonic bastard had no injuries at all. Aside from the black burn on the surface of his body, there was nothing wrong with it. But the miraculous body of the boy had become a fountain that sparkled blood on the plants as it threw him. His cold, motionless body was thrown away, and his eyes that were blocked with dry blood blinked at this moment. The skill had thrown him, but the place wasn't random. At the precise place, the two peculiar trees created something of a gate. A gate that was just normal, but there was nothing visible beyond these two trees. But the ashen trunk, the fiery leaves, the peculiar appearance. Nothing was visible to this miserable soul. He was thrown into this place, and all he could see was limited to what met the corners of his eyes that were still working. He saw the different tree and sighed with his breathless lips. At least, his aim was still as sharp as it has been honed all these years. He crossed the gate and the world changed. The change was unbelievable. He should have been thrown on the rough, black ground of the dark forest where there was eternal night. He should have been dead from the impact his body would suffer from the fall. This place should be the same and cold, filled with the gruesome smell of blood. But, no, he felt warm. There was the light of the sun. He felt grass. There was grass, green, fresh grass under him. Grass that was special in themselves and grass that had protected him. From the corner of his eyes, he could only see the place he had landed, so he wouldn't see the endless fields he was lying on. The unbelievable scene of endless plain ground with few separate trees. He couldn't see the beauty of this place, and he couldn't admire it from his first view. He couldn't see the enormous tower in the middle of these great plains. A tower that seemed to reach the sky. A masterpiece of sculpture and art. His eyes were unmoving, and his body was lifeless. The only thing he could see after his fall was the gate he had come from and the creature that had just walked in here. Or, at least tried to enter before he was blocked by some transparent barrier. He tried to force himself in with all his might and was able to succeed, too. The brute power shown by him was unlike anything he had shown while chasing after him. He passed through these strange trees after using his full strength that the boy that had almost stopped breathing couldn't fathom. He was laying here, in this strange place, and the only sense in his body that worked best was his ears. He couldn't move any part of his body, and his heart was barely beating. But he heard it. He heard the sudden screams of the creature that had never shown any weakness to him, and his eyes regained some vitality for a moment. And as he fixed his blood-blocked eyes back on the creature, and the spectacle entered his weak vision. He saw this. He saw the creature that had chased after him burn alive at an unreal speed by gorgeous, pure white flames? Flames were so magnificent that the ancient fruit's shield looked dull compared to it. Unreal flames that carried the elegance of a noble creature at the same time the power of the mighty. This was soothing to his heart, and he was happy to hear this creature scream in more agony than he had suffered all this time. But the screams weren't the only things there. Foolish creature. Just thinking about the power beyond the reach was a laughable thing, but to think it would enter this place with that filthy body. How dare! Oh, my, what peculiar thing we have here. This was something he had heard after a long time. A voice he had heard for the first time in his life in this great forest of Kemet. This was a voice that oozed with wisdom. This voice was old but still as young as the beginning. But, more than anything, this was a voice. This was a voice, and someone had just spoken. And that someone had a voice like humans from what he had just heard. A special one? Nature. As strange as ever. The female voice said and got closer to him in an instant, close enough to put her palm on his head. Well done. You are the strongest I had seen throughout my long lives, young boy. A fool with a mind of an adult that had suffered in cold. A powerful mind forged through the reality of life and death. Good. Now go. Rest in the greatest peace. I know we will have fun in the future, little one. The warm voice stopped and the hand on his forehead covered him in the warm, white flames of calmness. He lost consciousness, and the demonic creature vanished as if it had never existed in this realm. Strange things happened in this short time, but one thing was certain. The boy would live. Gasp! Suddenly opening my eyes, I panted heavily, trying to remember what had happened to me. Some peculiar pure white flames and a gentle touch on my head came back as an answer. I could remember the last moments of my life, and I was sure that I was almost dead. But, Holy Mother of... I'm alive. I was alive, and not only that, I checked my body and caressed every part of my body. What the... This was shocking. This was more shocking than I can think, because not only was I healed, but I was better than ever. I could feel the vitality had increased a lot, and I was breathing air that had higher mana density than the green forest. This air was purer than the one in the jungle I had lived in for years. Looking around, I could see the dazzling room that seemed to be a dream. Yeah. Maybe this is a dream. Am I dreaming? This wasn't something I could be sure about, and this luxurious room filled with shining things. This soft bed that was softer than ever, and this body. This body had not a single scar on it. I didn't feel any pain. I wasn't even hurt. This was as if someone had revived the dead body of the corpse like me. But, was all these real? Did I really survive that horrific thing? What were those white flames that killed the creature that had killed countless creatures in mere moments? And I remembered it all. Though my eyes were fuzzy, filled with blood and dust, I was sure that I saw it. I saw the creature and that it was dead. Someone had killed the creature, and that someone was far stronger than anything I had met in this life. Killing a demonic beast with the power of a high-level, purple-ranked beast? That was something not even masters were capable of doing. And those pure white flames. I had seen them clearly despite the red blood covering most of my eyes. I had seen them, and they were something unreal. A pure flame. Flames that were white. And flames that had burned the creature with no chance or mercy. His painful cries were still fresh in my eyes, and I was sure what I had seen was right. And I was also sure that the voice that I had heard was right. Someone was here. The owner of this place, and something too different from all the creatures I had seen in this great forest. That voice was still clear in my head. The wisdom-filled voice. The old and yet sympathetic voice. Something captivating but warm. This was the voice that I had heard, and the gentle touch I had felt on my forehead. I knew this was no normal being. Someone stronger than any creature, and wiser than even the great willow. Who was that person? What was she? Clank. I didn't have to worry about that too much, and the answer, the person on my mind, walked into this gorgeous room. A lady that looked older than my mom. But this was something more than what I had expected. Oh? Have you fallen for an old lady like me, little one? She said in her alluring voice that seemed celestial. I couldn't take my eyes away from her, even if I wanted to. I was a true admirer of beauty, and this was something that couldn't be compared to anything I had seen in my life. This lady, this person before my eyes, was just too alluring to not admire. Her hair was special, which started from orange and ended with a fiery red. the same as fire, and a fire that burned furiously. This lady was looking at me with a smile that was sweeter than my mom's and contained the warmth that I only felt with my family. Her eyes were blue, pale blue of pure fire. Her smooth, pearl-white skin went so perfectly with her appearance that I could forget the perfect body she possessed. Her clothing, the decoration, and the simple yet extravagant appearance were unreal. This was not something I could have ever imagined, even if I had seen countless miraculous things. But I knew this lady was my savior. Oh, don't cry like that, child. You did well and you survived. She came close to me and I was on the verge of breaking down. Her appearance was marvelous, but the joy of being alive was something greater than that. I was alive. This was the biggest thing I could wish for in the dying moments of this life. I wanted to live, and I was alive meant I could meet my parents. I could meet them, I could be with them, and yes, you should cry if you want. Tears contain emotions and help to relieve the pain, the anguish, and that grief in your heart. Embracing me with her strangely warm self, she gently stroked my head. Her touch was gentle, her touch was calm, and she was warm. Tears burst out of my eyes, and the dam storing the pain of a long flight, a long survival, a misery, was now open. My life had passed through my mind when that thing almost killed me, but now everything was okay. I was better and alive. There was no greater joy for me than being alive, but meeting someone like this lady brought greater joy to me. The tears were endless, and wait, it had been too late to react that I was naked, so forget that. I continued my cry, and, long story short, it lasted until my eyes turned red. Feeling better now? She asked as she sat down on a chair beside my bed and offered me some strange purple fruit. Well, I was hungry from all this running around, fighting, and chasing, and we can talk about the details later. Thanks. Picking up the apple like fruit, I took a bite from it. This was some fruit, but yeah, this thing was tasteless. This wasn't like the tasteless potato variety of this world, but just tasteless. My expression turned weird, and the lady caught that subtle change. It's something that will help your mental body, child. There is no taste, but it is helpful. And seeing that you took 3 months to wake up. 3 months? I shouted, cutting her mid-sentence, and stared at her with wide-open eyes. Ah, calm down. You are all right, so there is no problem, she said in an understanding voice and patted my head. Her touch was special, always calming and soul-soothing. If she said it was all right, it was okay. She had saved me, and I can believe her. This encounter was something that wasn't part of that damn hero plot, but I knew this was the play of that so-called fate. Nature had brought me here to this very place, this very person, and I would be eternally grateful for that. Me? She asked as if this was a troublesome question to answer. We had sat here and chatted for quite a long time. She was the third person I had told about myself and almost all the things that had happened to me. Strangely, she was the first lady to have heard my story. When compared, Seals was the same age as I was, and Fern was younger despite her 100 years of life. Oh, Seals, master. She was still sad I locked her in that mark. I knew just how difficult it would be to sit back and just feel the eternal pain I was going through. She couldn't even see what was hurting me so much and had no choice but to do the helpless praying. It was sad, and I was angry at myself for making her feel such things. She couldn't shed tears, but she could cry, grumble, and mourn for the things that happened to me, so I left her on my head, so that she could continue her eternal melody of woe. This lady said it had been a long time since she had seen a crystal butterfly like Seals, so I knew this alluring lady was not the same age as she looked. I just started talking to her, but we had yet to exchange names, so I asked her. But this look on her face that wondered the answer to such a simple thing was the strangest thing I had seen about her. Well, I don't have just one name, little one, and I don't use any of the ones that I used to have. You can call me anything you want. I won't mind. Her answer was strange, but I did not need to ask about the past that she had left behind. We were in a strange place right now, and I still didn't know what this place was. But I at least knew that this person who even my heart had accepted was something close to my being. It hadn't been long, but I felt like this person was something I had longed to see for a long time. This was the same as remembering my family. So, I can at least have her as my family. Well, in that case, I will call you Grandma. I spoke, and a smile appeared on her face. A smile of amusement. Grandma? You would be the first to call me that, little one. Well, I don't mind it. Instead, I would love it. Getting a grandchild before a child. Nature sure is strange. She patted me and Seals with a grandma-like smile on her beautiful face. I knew I had a grandmother, but she was also quite beautiful from what Mom had said, but this grandma of mine was special. Just like her touch that calmed my lovely Seals. You have quite a lovely partner here, Ian. Celestine, a gift of heaven. Quite a lovely name. Seeing an origin beast with all primary elements is quite rare, even more so than seeing a similar human. But why would someone that has no? Let's talk about that one later. She stood up and walked towards the window of the large room on the other side of the room. Looking out for a second, she looked at me and directed me to come there. I was confused, but I got up from the bed. I knew that my leg was healed, but this was even more than that. Wow. I was flabbergasted. This was amazing. The leg that was almost cut off by that bastard's blades was as normal as it had ever been. Standing up with a sigh full of awe, I walked to my grandma. To kill with a creature as strong as that monster with no effort at all. She was strong, and there was no way she was some normal human or other creature. I had many questions to ask her, and there were many things I wanted from her if I can. But those could wait. I walked beside her to the large window on the other side of the room and looked out at the spectacular scene before me. How high are we? My question was legit, and we were almost looking at the endless grass field. There was a boundary beyond that, and there was the dark forest where I had spent more than a year. It was faint, but I could see the green forest beyond the boundaries with my mystic eyes. I was there and then in the dark forest and now here. It had been a long time, and I was glad. I could feel that I had become stronger than I had been before the last fight. But that was just a small boost and something felt off. But this view before my eyes was something, really something. I didn't know what this place was or how high this tower was. But I knew that this place was something special. This special space in the middle of the dark forest, maybe. This was the place I had to reach. Maybe she would know how I can get out of this forest. She had wisdom significant enough that I could feel it just by looking at her. I had many things to ask, but, at least for now, I wanted to see this impressive sight. These endless grass fields. Some small places with flowers. Though there were some trees, they were either fruit trees or some rare trees that contained unique things. Looking down, I could only see the outline of this tower and the ground at the bottom. I understood that this was some tower and that this was her tower. This place was enormous, and the barrier covering this place was something unheard of. Something that not even the creature like that slime could break. Something that I could pass through just fine. What was that barrier, and how can this place could be cancelled like this? Who was this person? This grandma of mine? To have something like this. Creating something I can't even understand. Was she alone, or was there someone else here? In this large place? She was the one who made that white fire, so what was that fire? Can a fire burn the whole thing that had made devastation on his path that easily? Well, there were many more questions, and there were many things that she wanted to talk about, and I could feel that. She wanted a long talk, but I had just woken up from the 3-month-long nap? 3 months? That was some unbelievable thing, and seeing that she just said it like it was nothing, she was here all the time. To have taken care of a peculiar child like me for such a long time. Was it just because of her curiosity? Or was there something else in her mind? Who, or better, what was she? These questions weren't something that I could keep to myself for longer than now. So, the talk had to start, and I was happy to ask the first question. So, Grandma? What? Are you? Well, for starters. You might have guessed, but I'm not human. I have lived for thousands of years, so don't feel pressured to call me Grandma despite my appearance. You would have many questions, so let's move to somewhere a little better. Saying that, she started walking toward the door. This place was good enough, so I didn't know where we would go, but I just followed her. This is my tower. My home and a place I built to stay for the rest of my life. I have lived in the human domains for many years, and I know this great forest for a long time. This place, in the middle of the dark forest, is the quietest in all the great forests of Kamet, so I was just living here all by myself. Yes, I'm alone here, so it should answer one of your questions, she said as we walked out of the room and into the long hallway of this floor. This place was bigger on the inside than I had thought. This was no normal tower, and the whole round hall looked like some kind of castle. On this circular floor with the doors at the end of the room, the middle of the floor was almost empty. There was just a giant magic circle that I was seeing for the first time and many decorations on the sides of this place. This was some kind of luxurious castle, and this room was some kind of summoning place by the looks of it. Well, I didn't think it really was something like that. We are on the 36th floor, and I made this whole tower of 51 such floors with different things to it. I was just making all this for self-satisfaction, and you're the first human to be in this place. Never thought there would be a human here. She chuckled at the fact that a human was in her house, but this wasn't as shocking as hearing that she lived here alone. Alone? In such a big place? For that long? How could someone endure such a thing? Unless you are among those fantasy dragons that lived their lives alone? Well, that couldn't be true, as she had just said that she had lived with humans for a long time. Meaning she wasn't some dragon at the very least. What she was didn't matter that much, but knowing would be a good thing. And this place, her tower, this was not something ordinary. We walked in the middle of the circle and, like a teleport spell that high-level mages used, we vanished from that room and reappeared in a quiet room with only 2 chairs and a fireplace. Take a seat. This chat would be better than you might think. I didn't know why we were here, but the quiet dark room with 2 gorgeous chairs, a fireplace with the same white fire burning in it, the quiet cracking of fire, the smell of burning wood. All this was heart-soothing. As if my soul was getting healed, I was feeling better than just some moments ago. This was amazing, and it really surprised me something like that was possible by just being near a unique fire. Sitting on the relaxing, soft chair, I took out some burgers that I had made at Fern's party, as well as some ice cream and juices, and set them on the table before us. This place was something relaxing, and though this was just a corner of the room, I could see that this room was covering an entire floor. Meaning, this was a room of relaxation? This grandma of mine would have been super bored to have made things like this. And, if there was a floor of relaxation, a floor of bedrooms, so what else was there in those other 49 floors? Oh, what are these things? She asked as she looked at the food that I took out from my white crack. It would be naturally surprising to see these things for the first time. Well, I was the creator of these things in this world, so even if she had lived for thousands of years, she wouldn't know of them. Try it, Grandma. They are delicious. I offered a small burger, and she accepted it with both of her hands. Well, I didn't know why I got the feeling that she had no idea how to eat this thing, but I still ate it the same way I always did. With both hands and with the sauce. This was the thing. Some of the last thoughts I had when I closed my eyes against that creature were the regrets of not being able to eat ice cream. But, thanks to her, I won't have to suffer from that regret anymore. She ate the same way I did, and the surprised expression on her face was just like Mom's when she ate it for the first time. Putting her hand on her mouth in proper noble antiquity, she sat down in her chair on the other side. "What is this?" she asked in an awestruck voice. For someone like her, who had lived for thousands of years, it was surprisingly favorable. Well, that was the charms they carried. I was happy that something I made would make her this happy. Is this what people in your previous world ate? It's amazing to eat something thought in another world for the first time. To think I would do these things in this boring life of mine. Really, Ian, this is good. Yes, it really is. Wait, what? My mouth stopped chewing and the other hand moving towards a glass stopped in the air. This was something surprising and something that caught me off guard. My mouth hesitated, and I looked at her in a new light. Her shining eyes were as pure as fire. Her unique appearance and the way she talked as if she had lived a really long life outside of human understanding. The thing that she just said was enough to cancel many scenarios prepared in my mind. My mind was clear and all I could do now was talk to her. She had mentioned something really concerning, and this was something that no one, not even my second-half seals, knew. I was sure I never mentioned something related to my past, nor had I done anything that would make her say that. But she just said something like my previous world, and I had heard it loud and clear. And, well, it wasn't like no one knew about this thing. Just that seals didn't know the whole thing aside from the sad emotions. Looking at my alluring grandma, I nodded my head with another bite. Yes, this is from there. There was no need to hide something small like me being from somewhere else. I just had those memories. I was the Axion, the same person I had been since my birth in this world. It surprised Seals to hear this, but that was it. She didn't ask anything and just listened to us quietly while sitting on my head. And, as I knew, she patted my head to calm my nervous heart. That touch was something special. You know that I'm not human. So, what do you think I am, little Ian? She asked with her usual smile, and I had an answer ready. An answer that didn't make any sense at all. Something that I had never thought I would meet in my ending life. Not in a place of the eternal night, at least. Not in a great forest, dark forest, and even in a place that was like this tower. But, actually, that didn't matter to me anymore now. Shaking my head, I looked at her. I will wait until you clear my thoughts. So, let's move to the next question. This was a really weird answer, and she understood why I dodged this one. The barrier you came through. You know, not everything can pass through it, right? What do you think are the conditions for passing through it? That was the important question, and the answer to this question would make scenarios in my mind even fewer. That barrier is a boundary that only those who have gone through the experience of death can pass. Not a death-like experience, but actual death. One has to come back to life and have enough mental fortitude to pass through it. This is a dark forest, and every once in a while, a creature like that slime is born. Foolish creatures that don't know the limit and desire more than what they can handle with no willpower. Those vile creatures are the epitome of foolishness. Choosing the dark side when you can gain strength with a normal, difficult but pure path. Then there was you. She stopped and looked at me with an impressed, intrigued, and joyous expression. This was pure joy, as if something she had never thought was possible had happened before her. It disgusted her when talking about that slime and creatures like it, but there was a stark difference when it came to looking at someone like me or Seals. I had told her the most I could ever tell anyone, and she had accepted all of it with a smile. I was happy, and she continued with the same intrigued expression. A reincarnation. Though they are rare in this nature, there sure have been some throughout ancient times. Someone from a different world, bearing the unknown knowledge, and someone that changed the world every time they append in an era. You have already started a change, and that is a good thing. But she looked at me with a sudden sad expression and sighed helplessly. It's still cruel to see some young child go through so much at such a young age. Just thinking about how you might have lived in this dangerous place pains my heart. She was sincere, so much that I didn't know how to reply. I was speechless, and looking at her smile felt like I had someone similar to Seals and my family with me. A helpless smile escaped my mouth, and I just listened to her. You are talented, Ian. More than you think. Though you have been walking on a slightly wrong path, you are doing better than most masters I had seen. Her voice was the same, but just now, she was something really weird. Wrong path? I was walking on the wrong path? What did she mean by that? And directly comparing me to masters like this. Just how many masters has she met to say it so casually? Well, I was certain about what she might be, but to have such an experience was amazing. But that answered nothing. She looked at me, deep inside my eyes, and an unknown chill passed throughout my body. What was this, and what? Master. What just? The disguise we were in, Seals's ability that not even the ancient Willow can see through. An ability that had been always active. The ability that had maintained my appearance of dark hair and black eyes intact in all the situations. Just turned off? I was back to my original appearance. Long gold-like hair, my glowing red eyes. They were back after more than a year. I didn't have any need to turn that off, so I had kept it as it was, but now that it just turned off after that long time, I was looking at my true appearance. Well, the mirror in my white crack was just rotting without use, but this time, looking at this appearance of mine, even surprised me. I was better in long hair than the short ones, but, well, this was actually dad-like hair now. They were reaching my shoulder, but that was normal. You look better this way, so cherish this. Just like you, I also love the beautiful things. This smile was definitely something I had seen many times. My mom's mischievous smile, but far more attractive than hers. This was enough to make me blush like I was some real kid being teased. Grandma. I called her out and hid my face. What was this embarrassment? Why did I get embarrassed when someone complimented my appearance? This also made my heart beat faster. The same heart that had never been different in front of anything. No, it was different when the feelings I felt were genuine emotions. So, I was really embarrassed. Ho ho ho, little Ian. Don't be that embarrassed by this old lady's words. Now, my grandma was flirting with me, and I was really falling for them. No man. Hell. Ahem. And no grandma. More than tea that, what did you just do? Dispersing a skill from a crystal butterfly that a 1,000-year-old ancient tree couldn't even detect with a glare? Was that even possible? Do you know what origin skill is? She asked with a curious smile. She was curious about how I would answer her complicated question. This was really difficult if the one asking was someone like her. I didn't know if my answer would be right or the one she was looking for, or at least to her liking, but I had to answer to the best of my abilities. So, I answered with the most basic thing I knew. An origin skill is something like a connection between a person having it and the origin itself. Those with an origin skill can borrow the power from the origin and use it as the origin skills. As the mastery of this origin increases, the connection with the origin increases. Or something like that. I had many things to say, but this was as if she was just asking the things she knew that I know. As if she had already read my memories. Not that I minded if it was her, but this was all I could think about original skill at this moment. She smiled at my answer and looked at me with that smile. Good enough. You know the most basic thing, so your intermediate mastery is explainable. But you still don't know what your origin skill does, right? Putting her chin on her locked hand, she looked at me for a reply to this question that I never asked myself. My origin skill? My origin skill, son's blessing, should also do something, right? I awakened a long ago, and I had my original skill for as long as I know. But never in my life had I thought of using the skill itself. Never. The thought had never crossed my mind until today. Why? Why did I never think about it? What does it even do, and how can I don't even have a thought of using it? Don't think too much about it, she said and smiled at me. My eyes were chaotic and looking deep within hers. I knew if someone knew the reason for this. It was the person who had provoked this thought. She had started a blaze in my heart, and she was the only one that can calm this growing wildfire. My heart was beating faster ever since I heard that. Why have I never used the skill that I should have been able to use just after my awakening? This was a question that had suddenly created chaos in my eyes. My heart was asking if what I just heard was even the correct words or some kind of joke by some unknown person. As if confronting me, my inner voice was asking me if I can even use this skill. Can I, though? I should have been able to use it, and maybe if I had used it before, my life would have differed from what it was now. But the question remained. Why? I looked at her pure blue eyes that had a special blaze in them. She was smiling at me as if she was watching an actual child finding out something amazing for the first time in their life. My chaotic eyes, my heart, the sweat falling down my back, the air that seemed heavy suddenly. All this weirdness was something I didn't want to feel, but I was feeling it as if some defense mechanism telling me not to do what I was thinking of. She sighed while looking at me and patted my head with her special touch once again. This time her touch was warmer than before. As she touched it, the warmth started covering my head. Then it slowly went down and from my neck, chest, stomach, and to the ends of my toes, like a fluid filling a jar. This was strange, and this was enough to bring me back to the way I was. Sighing again, she sat back and started her long explanation. You are special, Ian. You are more special than you think. The feeling you get, that opposing feeling of not thinking what you were thinking, was also your origin skill. Sun's blessing. This is not something anyone other than you have, and the reason? Well, I don't know. An origin skill is something that could belong to only one person. Maybe there was something before you that this skill belonged to, or you might be the first one to have it. But only you have it. Though having the skill for the first time would make you a beginning. Something that many divine beasts are. That skill isn't something you can use right now, and that's first the reason you instinctively avoid it. But you have been using it instinctively all this time. Sun's blessing. This is a skill that balances different energies inside your body. It protects you from foreign energies like dead mana or the negative energy of the demonic beast you had met some time ago. But that isn't how you use it. You can use the skill itself after your origins awakening, which would be a long way in the future. But the passive use of this skill, Ian, is something that is my specialty. Suddenly, her face turned very serious and there was clear worry on her face. Her specialty? Well, it was acceptable to know that the one that protected me from the dark hands of the slime was my skill, and that the time I had to spend in the cave with blood crystals was also safe thanks to that skill. This was all understandable. Which was weird, but what did she mean by it being her specialty? I wanted to ask, but she shook her head. No, let's hold this one for later. I know you have many questions, and the biggest one would naturally be if I know the way you can get out of this great forest. After all, you have a family you have to go back to. Her words suddenly sparked the greatest light in my eyes. You know? From the way she said it, she was sure how to go out of this place, and I was looking for none other than that thing. She was my grandma, but a family was waiting for me, and it had been 3 years already. For the last 3 years, I had suffered, and all this had been hell for me. I had come a long way and fought long, bloody battles. For the first time in this life, I walked to death's doors. She knew how to get me out of this hell. But the answer that I got from her confused me. Yes and no. What do you mean by that? I asked with a shocked look. What did she mean she knew and not at the same time? This differed from the ancient willow's clear denial. She was saying she knew and that she didn't? What the hell does she mean by that? This was no joke, as I could feel the sadness and pity in her voice, but I didn't know what answer I should accept. Did she know how I can get out of here but can't tell me, or she didn't know, but I can leave even without that? I looked at her with a tough expression, and she shook her head with a bitter smile. Do you know what this is? She said, and a screen-like image appeared before my eyes. This was the same as the screen, and maybe this was some type of skill. But the thing I was seeing in this image was unbelievable. Is this thing here? I asked as I looked at the screen with wide-open eyes. I couldn't deny this after seeing it with my own eyes. But this was unbelievable. The thing before me was lost knowledge, or more specifically, an ancient artifact. Before my eyes was a gate. And this was no normal thing. This was something I had only seen in one ancient history book, and this thing before my eyes was even grander than what I had seen. If the books recorded it as a 2 to 3 meter tall, this thing before my eyes was covering an entire room of 12 meters in height and almost double width. This was not something that should be possible, but it was. And if this thing was here, then it meant I can get out of this hell. But if this was real, then what did she mean by yes and no? Seeing my confused expression, she nodded her head with pity and hope. As you certainly know, this is a gate, an ancient artifact and ancestor of this era's warp gates. But, unlike them, this specific one can connect to any place in this world. But she paused and looked at me with a serious gaze. A gaze filled with the words that told me to prepare myself. She was telling me to prepare to hear the bitter truth about myself that I had firmly understood from the last fight. I was ready, but this was still painful to hear after all the training and shit I had gone through. This gate is special that can send you to your loved one, and I would have happily let you use it. But you're weak. This gate is to travel the highest possible distance, and its actual name is Spatial Gate that can connect 2 points in space. Though it would require a large amount of energy just to get out of this great forest, it would be complicated in itself. A special layer of natural energy covers the whole great forest, and that is the reason demonic corruption doesn't happen here. That energy interferes with space magic, and that's the reason normal communication or teleportation magic doesn't work here. But this gate is special, just like this separate space and this unique tower. The gate is on the first floor of the tower, but there are conditions for one to pass through it. You have to have sufficient mental strength, physical strength, and enough energy to start the process. Though it is easy to come here through this gate without those conditions, getting out is an arduous task. You are surprisingly strong for your age, but you are still weak. For someone to pass through this, they either have to have a special physical body structure like this little butterfly, or the strength to stand against the creature that even you couldn't face. Ian, I don't mean to make you sad, and you don't have to feel disappointed. You are amazing to have survived in this place for such a long time, but you can't pass through that in your current state. She finished with a sorry expression and looked at me. I knew I was weak. I was so damn weak that even a green-ranked monster would kill me without me having a chance to fight. That slime was too much for me, and I knew it from the start. The only reason I was alive right now was that this grandma had saved my life. I had come across many creatures that were life-threatening to me, and I knew they weren't something I could face. And even after all this, I had survived. But hearing that you are weak from someone else hurts. I felt like the efforts that I had put in, the struggles I had been through, the training I did, all were futile. The way to get out of this place was before me, and still, I was so weak that couldn't even pass through some gate. This made me feel pathetic, but this was not that much difficult. Seeing this gate also made me happy. No, it made me overjoyed, and the bright smile on my face was a simple reflection of that. I was happy, and this was the way. Now, all I had to do was get strong enough to pass through this gate. Getting here was easy, as she said. The gates that the demon used weren't as advanced as the ones before me. The thing on this first floor was a super large-scale teleportation gate. Different runes were engraved in each and every corner of this stone gate, where they glowed in different colors. This was a spectacular room in itself and was filled with different lights and complicated runes I was seeing for the first time. These were ancient texts that existed at least 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, and they had perished thousands of years ago, leaving only the remains of their existence. But something of that time was here in perfect condition. This was something that could only be found in ancient tombs, ancient level dungeons, or great labyrinths. I didn't want to know what she was, but my grandma was someone that held the greatest knowledge and power I had ever seen. And even though this was our first time meeting, I knew she had taken care of my sleeping body for the last 3 months. And Seals also knew just how strong this lady was because, for the first time since we had been together, Seals wasn't indifferent to someone. She had been fearless in the face of that monster, but before her, she was hesitant. Even though she might not know the reason, she could feel it, and so does I. This grandma was strong, and she had the same idea as me, so it was my duty to start the important topic. She was thinking about something for some time, and just when I opened my mouth to say that, she also said her thoughts at the same time. Grandma, will you be my teacher? Axion Cromit. Will you become my successor? Padrone? I instinctively asked as I looked back at her. This was shocking, or more like weird. What did you say? I asked once again. This was genuinely confusing. I thought she was also thinking of taking me as a student. From all the small time I had spent with her, I was sure she was interested in me. Not in that way, but she was interested in me maybe because of my origin skill that was somehow related to her. The same origin skill that was somehow connected to her specialty. She said the correct use of my passive original skill was her specialty, so I was thinking it was something like that white flame. But what was this sudden successor thing? Oh, did you mean your student too, Grandma? That confused me. Successor also meant the one that learned something from others. So, she indeed meant for me to become her student. Thank God. For a moment, I thought something really weird. Well, her sigh confirmed that those thoughts were wrong. I had a terrible past with the word successor, but, well, this wasn't it. Yes, Ian, something like that. So, will you? She asked while standing up from where she was standing. She stood up and walked by the fireplace and asked me to stand up with her eyes. Yes, please. If it's you, I know I will become strong enough to pass through that gate in the shortest time. I was sure, and there was no doubt in my mind. A being that had killed a purple-ranked powered, a demonic beast in mere seconds becoming my first ever teacher. What more I can ask from this hell? This hell showed me the lowest things and showed the steps of heaven to me. She was a being that I couldn't find if I got out of this place, and just meeting her was the play of fate. I wanted to learn whatever I can from her. All the things as fast as I can. I knew I couldn't learn everything from her, but I at least knew that her teachings would be invaluable. And so, I also walked to the fire and nodded my head. Very well. Then, as the first thing, I will teach you something that all those who have an origin skill can do. She said with a smile, and a white light started coming out of her hand. A light that reminded me of my origin skill, but this was somewhat different. There was something different, but I knew what this was. And seeing the light in my eyes, she understood I knew what she was trying to do. Yes, this is how you use Oath of Origin, the strongest oath any being can use. You might have guessed, and yes, I'm an origin user too. Mine is surprisingly similar to yours, but a bit different. It's called Sun's Fire. But let's focus. Axion Cromit, will you become my successor and fulfill my one wish? She said in a serious voice. Her eyes were telling me to make the hardest decision of my life, but I didn't know what this meant at this moment. But I fixed my mind on her other words more. She was the first being who had origin different from nature. Though I still didn't know what she wanted as her wish, she was my lifesaver. I would do anything for her. And so, without thinking too deeply, I got on my knees and accepted the first oath of my life. I accept you, my grandma, as my master. Please, take good care of me, and I swear that I won't fail your trust. I didn't know if I agreed too quickly, but I saw nothing wrong with what I had just done. I felt happy when the light touched me, and for a brief moment, I felt the same way as when I was before the sun during my breakthrough to intermediate mastery. As if I was before the sun, this was a warm feeling. This only lasted for a short time, and she smiled at me. So, my dear Ian, I now pity you more than before. I won't hold back, and you should forget if you have any thoughts of having a better life than the one you had in that dark forest. Aside from better conditions, your life's going to become hell from now. She smirked. That was an evil smile, and suddenly I remembered my mom. A chill ran down my back, and I had to rethink just what I had gotten into. My thoughts were falling into a chaotic view, but Grandma said something that made my eyes widen and my heartbeats wilder than ever. Now that this is finished, Ian, how about talking with your family? What? Couldn't believe my ears. I said, let's talk with your beloved parents. Her voice was sincere, and she meant what she just said. And she had a smile that was the same as it always was, reliable. I didn't know what to say, but a blank nod escaped from me. She just smiled and extended her hand. Still blank, with a chaotic mind and fast-beating heart, I accepted her hand. Talk to my parents? Did she mean I can really talk to them? Can I really see them? See my family I hadn't seen for the last 3 years. How is that possible? Was there something like the communication device in this place that had the power to connect to some place where there wasn't a receiver? How was something like that possible? But if it was her, if it was his master and grandma that had a gate of ancient times, it might be possible. Maybe. I can see them? A single tear slid down my left eye, and I gripped her hand. She patted me with her special hand that calmed my heart, and I nodded at her. Walking to the middle of the room once again, we reappeared in a new area. A place filled with flowers? A garden with fountains, flowers, small plants, and sunlight? Where is this? I asked, staring at this phenomenal place with utter disbelief. I can see the ceiling, but there was sunlight filling the whole place. Though there were windows, this should be late. This should almost be evening or sunset, but there was clear sunlight, while some places were normal with dim light, while some had dark shadows of night. What a mystical thing to witness. But my heart was beating faster, and this area had one place that seemed special. A large garden that was far bigger than what it should be. The last room was also bigger than what we had seen on the 36th floor. Was there some kind of space magic covering all the floors? Just how powerful was my master? This was the question that I would find out eventually, so the more important thing before me was this altar with a big crystal ball. Established in the center of a gazebo, this clear crystal ball was the only thing that attracted the eye other than the mystical flowers and plants. This place was magical, but my mind wasn't focusing on anything other than this special crystal ball. How was this going to make me see my family? Can I use this whenever I want? How does one even use this thing? With mana, like the mage's communication device? How would this thing know where my parents are or how they look? Maybe it would use my memories, but would it really be able to find it? Will I be able to talk with them, and if yes, then for how long? I looked at it and tried to use my skill to know what this crystal ball was, but, as expected, that was futile. That low-grade appraisal could never apprise a divine artifact of this level, Ian. She said as if it was nothing but what she just said. This thing broke the ground beneath my legs. Divine artifact. A real divine artifact. For real. Ho, looks like you know about them too. Yes, that's a divine artifact, created by yours truly. And this isn't the only one in this tower. You might actually have a heart attack when you see the 48th and 51st floors. Those are more exciting than others. We have a lot of time, so we will visit them eventually. She paused for a moment and looked at me with a bit of a sad face. This one is called Infinite Mirror Ring. Just like the gate, this can connect anything in the space and create a screen before the targeted people. This is something I made, and the greatest flow of it is I am the only one that can activate it. And we can only use it once every 3 months. We can't use it for more than 10 minutes too. So those are the limitations. Aside from that, you can speak to anyone you want and, at the same time, at that. So, are you prepared? She asked in a gentle voice. Though the 3-month thing was too much, I understood it was a divine artifact we were talking about. We divided artifacts into 3 categories. Artifacts, divine artifacts, and ancient artifacts. Normal artifacts were something we can find easily, and dwarves were best at making these things. Though normal artifacts were divided into levels, the strength increased with each number. My bow that Mom gifted me was a level 5 artifact, and the bow that I had been using all this time, the one that Ent gave me, which was obviously destroyed during the last fight, was a level 6 artifact. There were 12 such levels, and above them stood divine artifacts. Something that only a Grandmaster craftsman could create. Though masters were the rarest when talking about forgers, craftsmen, or similar non-combat classes, when they successfully create a divine artifact, we considered them Grandmaster level. The ancient artifacts, just like its name suggested, were like that gate on the 1st floor. That was lost knowledge, so, even if someone wanted to, they couldn't create something magnificent of that level. My master created this incomparable thing, even among the legendary divine artifacts. And she was definitely far above the Grandmaster realm. A Grandmaster was an existence that could be counted on one hand, and on the whole of this continent, there were only 6 known Grandmaster creators. And meeting someone far above their level could only be called a blessing or play of fate. I had thought that she was some immortal being, but then again, true immortality was not a thing in this world. She was amazing, and now I was even more excited to look forward to what she was going to teach me. I wanted to learn everything I could from her, and if creating things was one of them, I was even happier. But it overjoyed me, the thought of getting to see my parents once again. My dear family, I haven't seen you for a long time. Grandma had explained more, and only the ones I wanted to see me can see the round mirror-like screen that would appear on the other side, so I took a deep breath to prepare myself.
Ok, Grandma.
I nodded, and she also nodded back. She extended her hand, and a white light came out of her beautiful hands. A pure white light, the same as those magnificent flames I had seen back then and in the last room. This light covered the glass orb, and I put my hand on it. I had to think about them thoroughly, and I couldn't do it less than perfect. Mom, Dad, I'm fine. Nolan, Anna wants to play with Mama. A male voice rang in the surrounding room filled with papers and things that looked important just from a glance. The male with black hair and shining red eyes picked up from the door and smiled at the woman buried in the pile of papers. In this large room, sitting on a large table with papers of different colors, sizes, and shapes, she looked through them at a speed that seemed unreal. This was a lady that shined in the gentle sunlight coming from the window behind her. Her angelic look, her shining hair, and those eyes that were exhausted but, at the mention of that name, rejuvenated instantly. Putting down the peculiar-looking fountain pen with a strange bird drawn on it, she stood up with a cool expression. Looking at the man, she winked, and he smiled, understanding what was going through his beloved wife's mind. Though he said nothing, the man wasn't alone. There was someone with this father in a pink kitchen gown painted with chocolate. She could see the fresh stains, and the bright smile on his face gave him away. As if this situation was normal, she stood up and walked up to the man with silent footsteps. Even though she tiptoed to this door, her dignity and diligence in every action were unparalleled, and that special smile on her face was unique, too. What she was smiling mischievously at was the man and the little one hiding behind him. Reaching the door, she bent down and peered out of the cracked open door and said, "Boo!" A young cry echoed after her little prank, and the man pushed the door open. He came in, and she looked at the tiny figure that had fallen to the ground from the shock. This sight made her smile the happiest smile she could ever make. A smile filled with love, and the genuine feeling in the smile didn't need words to express her love. Her motherly love which had lived on through her after the incident that happened almost 3 years ago. But she was happy at this moment as she was looking at her lovely daughter that had fallen to the ground from the surprise. "Mama finds me every time. Daddy is definitely cheating on me," she grumbled as she accepted her mom's hand to stand back up. This was a little girl, a little fairy would be better to call this amazing child. Her dark hair danced in the light breeze of the fine morning. Her red eyes that were darker and cleaner than her dad, and the eyes that seemed as if jewels. Real jewels in the place of eyes, and gems that seemed priceless from just a look. Her long eyelashes and her angelic appearance, which was the same as her mother's, were splendid. She wore a sky-blue dress, a small dress with white ribbons around it that looked so cute that everyone would want to love this child. She had a smile far more magical than her mother, and her grumpy look after being found out was priceless. "Dad cheated on my darling Anna? Oh my, look like we will have to punish him for this, right?" she said in a genuine voice as she picked up her little angle. Looking at the father with her mischievous smile, she kissed the fluffy cheeks of her daughter. Her tired appearance was gone, and she had recovered her fatigue just from this small interaction. Her daughter was thoughtful and smart for her age. Not as her big brother, but better than a most normal child of her age. She was the most normal kid in this house, and at the same time the most precious one. She was normal in most ways, but unlike her big brothers and sister, she didn't have any outstanding talent. But the thing she possessed was something that was more valuable than their talents. But there was no need to worry about that. No harm could reach her in this place, and she was happily growing up with her family. The little girl looked at her mother with a sad look that was unforeseen to her mom. Looking into her mom's eyes, she kissed her with her delicate lips, which worked wonders. Fresh energy ran throughout her mom's perfect body, and her eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, baby? Anna was that worried about Mama? Is this kiss a gift to Mama or punishment to Daddy? Little one?" She smiled happily after the special gift from her little one. She couldn't help her smile at the sudden gift from her beloved daughter. This was her daughter's gift that she could give to others. A gift that seemed so normal at the same time was more complex than one could think. But, at this moment, her gift that only a mother had received was enough to tease the crybaby daddy of hers. "Anna? Only Mama? What about Daddy? I want a cake kiss too, darling. We even ate your favorite cake." The father pleaded with a pained heart and tear-filled eyes. It was painful for him to see her beloved daughter only loving her mother, even though he knew it was going to happen. As her dad, he was closer to her than her mother, and seeing her only love for her mother like this was poking a needle into his poor heart. "No, Papa cheated on Anna. No kiss to you. She shouted and turned her head away from her dear father. Even though she was just playing with him, the poor father of hers had broken into tears from this sudden rejection. Nolan, you stole my Anna. I didn't even cheat. Tell her you knew. Sniff. He cried with a crestfallen expression. It was ironic to see the one feared as red-eyed hunter in tears after not receiving a kiss from his little daughter. Her daughter that had been his sole light in the darkness. She took him out of his self-created abyss and made him even better in this short time that was like an eternity to him. He had genuine tears in his eyes, and seeing this, the little angel sighed. Oh, Dada, my poor Dada, what would you do without me? The way she said this sent a chuckle to her mother, and this little lady's sigh was a marvelous sight in itself. A little 3-year-old sighing at her crying father. This was adorable, and the more adorable thing was her patting his big head with her little hand. There, my big Dada cries more than me. What do you think others would say? She spoke in her baby speech. They tied her hair in 2 small ponytails with a pink ribbon, and she nodded while patting her tear-filled father. Leaning closer, she kissed him on his clean cheeks. Unlike her grandfather, her daddy didn't have any hair that tickled her, so she liked this puppy more. Though it created situations like this among her family many times, how many things did this little girl do? If she gave it to one, all others too wanted her kiss. But she didn't mind that, and, just like her father, that was now full of energy even after playing with her from early morning. She knew her small kiss helped them. So, she was happy to see others smile. I will eat Daddy's ice cream today. Dada's punishment, she said as the now calmed father took her from her smirking mother. Loss of one day's ice cream. That was heavier than he had expected, but he had to accept this punishment with no questions. Yes, my princess. He accepted with a heavy heart and kissed her little angel's fluffy cheeks. She giggled, and they smiled at seeing this angelic smile on her face. This was late in the day, and the warm spring breeze passed through the open window. This was the normal day of their slow life. The little angel was smiling, they were happy, and the air was fresh. They were going to play with their daughter for more, but something strange started before their eyes. A round, mirror-like glass suddenly popped up before their eyes like the status window. Their hair stood up, and they jumped a few steps back in surprise. The father was holding his daughter, tightened his grip, and a purple magic wand appeared in his hand. His eyes were sharp on this sudden appearance of this thing, and so was his wife's. She was in an attention position, ready to protect her family. The sudden change in their behavior surprised their little girl, and she clenched her dad's clothes, confused about what was happening. There were protection barriers, so unauthorized magic can't be used here, so this situation greatly confused them. This was something different, as if highly advanced magic had activated in the air before them. A ripple appeared in these mirrors, and, after a moment, an image appeared in it. An image of a young boy with long, gold-like hair and eyes similar to the little girl's father. Their eyes widened, and tears wetted their eyes. They didn't know what was going on, but they could never forget the face that had just appeared inside the mirror. The sudden change of emotions caught the little girl's eyes and confused her even more. She didn't know what their parents were doing right now, but something happened that she couldn't see. The parents were looking at the mirror with open mouths, and a voice they hadn't heard for a long time broke the sudden silence. A voice that had grown up but still contained the same emotions that they couldn't mistake. The mother was having a harder time than the shocked dad and was looking at the smiling boy, who also had tears in his familiar eyes. The voice echoed in their ears, and the tears lingering on the edges of their eyes slid down delicately. Mom, Dad, have you been okay? The mother looked at the boy beyond the mirror and extended her hand as a tear of salvation slid down her warm cheeks. Is that you? She asked with eyes full of joy and a heart full of hope. The boy on the other side nodded with a glad smile. Yes, Mom, it's me. The voice on the other side of the mirror answered with the same tear-filled eyes as hers. She couldn't believe it, but her heart knew this was her son. This was her son that she had raised all those years, and the son that had fought to save his family. This was her son. Alive and fine. He was talking to her, and she wasn't the only one. The father asked in a voice filled with disbelief. This wasn't just the shock to see him, but the way he was contacting them. He had tried countless things, but there weren't any results other than the soul graph. But it took abundant resources just to keep that equipment on the 3rd floor running in normal mode. And here was his son, contacting them with some strange method. He was happy to see his son after such a long time, but also shocked by the way they were meeting after that long time. This was no ordinary magic or something even a genius mage like him could fathom. He knew his son was in an unreachable place, and there shouldn't be anything that could connect someone outside the place with that extreme disturbance. Just maintaining the entire system, he and his wife's brother had created used energy equal to 2 whole mansions' yearly amount in a single day. And he was using something without a receiving point? His thoughts were clear for the boy to read, but he just smiled at his crying dad. At least, he was overjoyed to see his son more than those useless things. The father was holding back his tears, unlike moments ago when he had cried over the small thing his daughter had done. Oh yes, the daughter. The little girl was confused about what was happening in this room. The sudden change of behavior from her dear parents confused her dearly. She didn't understand what was happening with them, but she seemed unafraid. The sudden situation that might have made any kid cry in fear was just making her eyes watery. She was more worried about her parents than anything. This was the first time that her parents had acted this way, but she at least knew that there were always bad people. Bad people in this world, bad people that might want her or bad people that might hurt others. She was afraid that something like that was happening, but then seeing her parents' crying faces deepened the confusion. The father was holding her and his grip had loosened from before, so it was at least a safe situation. Taking a deep breath, she looked at her mom and dad, that was blankly staring at the air before them. "Mom? Dad? What are you doing?" she asked in her timid baby voice and gained the attention of the lost parents. "Anna, you can't see this?" The dad asked in confusion, and at the same time, the boy on the other side of the mirror asked with the most emotional voice he had made. "Mom, is that?" His voice was filled with love that was even more than when he addressed his parents. He was finally, after 3 long years, looking at the one he had protected from the vicious demon on that day. He couldn't contain those overflowing emotions, and the mother could feel it. She nodded at her dear son, who was looking at his little sister for the first time. He wanted to see her closer, to hold her, play with her and spoil her as an older brother should. He wanted to be with her, but he was still too weak for that. At least he could talk with this little angel. It still confused the little girl as her dad was pointing at the blank space before him. They were talking to air, and her behavior at that point was asking them if they had, at last, not gone nuts. But that cute expression changed into something of a shock when an unexpected round glass window-like thing popped in front of that place she was looking. "Yikes! Daddy! Something just..." She shouted at her dad with a frightened face. That round little face looked too cute when shocked. This little one's reaction made everyone smile, and the melancholic atmosphere changed into a warm one. The boy looked at the little girl with love-filled eyes, then at the mom, and then at his dad. His eyes were teary, but he was smiling. Smiling for the family he so dearly had protected. Looking down for a moment, he sighed and then took a deep breath and cleared the tears handing over his clear eyes. Looking back at the shocked little girl who was glaring at the strange mirror and the person who had eyes of similar color as her dad, and hair almost the same as her mom. She was confused, but she understood this person was someone his lovely parents cherished as much as hers. But there can only be one person who could earn reactions like these from them. "Big brother?" she asked while hiding on the shoulders of her dad and hugging him with her little self. She knew this person was the reason they were here today, but her mom and dad had never told her how or where he was. They just knew that he was safe and that something terrible had happened to him some time ago. That time was hard for her as they both were trying to hide the pain from her. She could feel it, but if they weren't telling her, then it meant that this was more than what she could understand. For the first time in her little life, she was seeing a special person, her heroic brother. She wasn't afraid of him, not even a little. Her heart was beating faster, and she was blushing as if some fan seeing her ideal for the first time. Meeting someone she only had heard about and always dreamed of meeting. She was nervous about this brilliant brother of hers, and the boy on the other side could understand this little one. This was the life he had protected, and he knew his little sister was nervous to see him for the first time. He was seeing his family while they were seeing him after a long time, but this little one was seeing him for the first time. And he knew what to do in this situation. The mirror floated towards them, and she tried to hide even more. The action of this 3-year-old was amusing for the parents that were overjoyed to see their son. "May I have the honor to know your name, little lady?" he asked with a warm voice. She didn't know what to do, but after hearing the voice of her big brother for the first time, she couldn't help but look at him. Slowly, she looked back at the floating mirror and met her brother's eyes. Eyes that seemed more beautiful than her own. There was something special about those pretty eyes. Her jewel eyes lacked the fire, the magic, and the sheen her big brother had. These were more fresh eyes than normal, and only her father, grandfather, and white-haired grandpa had. But they still stood out among them. They were just different. She loved those eyes. "Pretty," she exclaimed with genuine surprise and sparkle in her eyes, but quickly recovered from this astonishment. "Ahem, big brother. My name is Anna, Anastasia. It's a pleasure to meet you," she said while bowing her little head. Such adorable sight, he chuckled with a bit of sad eyes. He wanted to pat that little head of hers, stroke her soft cheeks, embrace her little self and never let her little hand go this time. But he wasn't strong enough to go to them just yet. But at least he could talk to them this way. "Hello, Anna.
I'm Ian. I'm
Very happy to see you're so healthy." His eyes were teary after this one, but his words reminded the two parents something had also happened to their son. "Ian, are you okay? You were almost, then, and now you're like this?" The father couldn't find the right words as his eyes widened. "Ian, are you okay? We know something happened to you and then suddenly you got better? Are you really okay?" The mother asked with a concerned voice and worried eyes. I was only half visible to them right now, but I had no intention of telling them now. This wasn't the good way. I wanted to tell them everything, but not like this. Not when I can't even hug them. "I will tell you when I get back, but it will take a long time. But you don't have to worry now. I'm perfectly fine and I shouldn't go through the same thing again. Right, master?" He looked at the other side of the mirror in front of him. His expression was hesitant, as if he didn't know what he was going to do from now on. But at least he had the hope that he won't have to suffer the way he had last time. But he gulped when he just received a blank smile from his grandma and sighed in fear. "Yes, I will be fine. You don't have to worry." His mom sensed the hesitation in her son's voice, but she didn't ask further, and he didn't have much time to talk. Anyway, he could only use this device for a short time, and that time wasn't enough to talk for much longer. The short meeting of the little one and her heroic brother had finished, and so did the time. "Looks like I don't have much time," he said in a sad voice, and as soon as those words escaped his mouth, the faces of his family fall from the grace. They had seen their child for the first time in all these years, and now he was going away without talking much. "Why? Ian, how did you do this? Can we see you again? There is still an entire family to introduce to. Everyone had worried about you as much as us." And the mother asked in a worried voice, and he knew this would happen from the start, but fortunately, this wasn't the last time they would meet. "Don't worry, Mom. We can do this every 3 months, so we will see you in some time. Though the time I talk can't increase from what the master said, we will meet again, and then you can also introduce me to them. I can only think of the hardship you all might have endured, but thank you. For your mom to keep your promise and dad to support her. Anna, this was a small meeting, but I have fallen in love with you. So we will talk more next time. Okay, darling?" So, the communication window was starting to disappear in the air slowly, disintegrating, unlike the way it suddenly had appeared. It was slow, so he was still there. He was seeing them as everything disappeared into the particles and the sadness in their eyes turned teary once again. He just waved at them with a cheerful smile and the window disappeared. He disappeared from there, and everything turned back to normal. He was gone. They were now alone once again. But this at least wasn't a goodbye. This was a see you soon, and they will see him again in a few months. Though this time would feel longer than before, they at least knew that their son was safe. This was enough. Tears started pouring out of their mother's eyes like never before, and the father followed suit. The little daughter was trying to calm them down, but nothing worked, and then she just joined them with her innocent tears. The room filled with the voices of crying, but, unlike most, they were tears of relief and joy. "Thank you, Master." I thanked her after crying for another 10 minutes. Though it was small, we could see each other again. I met my family, my little sister, after that long time of separation. This was still not enough, but it was great. I was satisfied with this for the time being, and I could still see them again in the future. The time was short, but I was lucky they all were together. They looked better than I had thought, and the reason was definitely my cute little sister. She was angelic, a gorgeous baby. Her eyes were like mine, but I had seen them and I knew they were extremely special eyes. Eyes that were as rare as this divine artifact before my eyes. Those eyes, same as some jewels, were something many people wanted. I didn't know exactly what her special ability was, but from their cheerful and warm smiles of them, I was sure it was as special as herself. It might be difficult in the future, as many bad people would want her. But I knew she would be safe. Many people were protecting her, and she will have a better life than me in that special place. It was a short time, but it was enough for me to understand most of the things that had happened in my absence. Though these were just my thoughts, I knew we were more than just some rich noble house. The room they were in was as luxurious as the one I was in some time ago, and my mom had an aura no simple noble could have. I didn't know about the aristocratic society of this world, but I had seen, observed, and lived in different societies of humans in my past life. I knew what type of aura, behavior, or atmosphere they lived, and I could tell that my mom and even my dad were in a higher position in this society. That messy room filled with more papers than usual showed that Mom was busier than the time she was at home, but she knew how to spare time to play with her children. As always, she was playing with the little one just like we played, and she was happy. They were happy, and she was the sun shining down on their lone lives. Dad was still wearing the same pink kitchen apron he wore at our little house, but this was the better one. The dark stains of chocolate were clearly visible on it, meaning there was someone else that liked chocolate flavor as much as me. Was it that cute little lady? Looks like I will have to share my chocolate. Ultimately, they were doing okay. And now that we confirmed that I was safe, they will be better than now. This was good. Looking back at Grandma, I stood up from the ground and said, "Let's continue where we left, Grandma." I was thankful for this, and I had no way of showing my thank you to her. She was my savior. She let me talk to my family and even accepted my selfish request to teach me. On top of that, I can go back as long as I was strong enough. Though I wasn't thinking about what I would do after that, or if we could ever meet again, I thought little about that. I needed a long time to get strong enough, but how strong? As if to have read my mind, she looked at me and chuckled. "Don't worry too much about it. I will tell you when you are strong enough, and getting stronger is a good thing anyway, right? You have a family to protect, so you will need strength. So let's go back." I thought a little about this weird answer and just smiled. She was happy to see the glad smile on my face, and so we walked out towards the side. This magic circle wasn't in the center but on another side of the garden, so I could see all the things in this place. And I concluded that this grandma of mine could be the richest person in the world just from selling things on this floor. I would believe without hesitation if someone said that this was a guardian of a god. One more thing about that, this floor was huge, like real humongous. It had different garden areas with trees and plants. I didn't know how the hell sunlight came through clear walls, but this was a gorgeous place filled with flowers, plants, and trees. And the other is that everything here was either super rare or impossible to find in normal circumstances. I even thought some have gone extinct, like that angelic rose growing in one part of the garden. A 1-meter-tall flower that grew from the ground with its almost tree-like base. That holy-looking thing was recorded in history books as one of the finest elixirs of the past, and it wasn't just one. This flower grew alone, but she had 6 in that area, meaning there were 6 of those tree-like flowers in the same place. I didn't know why I was still alive even after standing in presence of these things, but she smiled and answered my valid question. Valid because just the energy from one of those flowers was enough to overwhelm a normal human like me while there were 6 of them and I was still alive. There are barriers around everything like them, so don't worry. You're safe here. Actually, you will be safe in this place wherever you go. You are my successors now, and this place also belongs to you, so nothing could harm you. Don't worry. She chuckled, and we reached the magic circle that led us back to the relaxation room. Back in my seat, I stared at the white fire, golden wood burning inside it, and the soul-soothing atmosphere of this room. This fire looked gorgeous, and it was pure, but there was one thing about it that I couldn't understand. There was no trace of energy or mana in it. There was warmth but no actual heat radiations, and from the way it looked, it was no normal fire. And without mana present, there was only one thing left to this question of mine. Looking at Grandma, I saw her smile mischievously, which knew what was going on in my mind. Her beautiful appearance was attractive, and every time I saw that smile, I can't help but admire her. Her eyes had something very special, as if they contained all knowledge in the world. That was her special trait, and so was this fire. Divine flames, one of my powers and something that can burn anything as long as it is evil in the eyes of the world. There is nothing negative it cannot destroy, and the negativity of the soul is one of them. That is the reason you feel so soothed around them. But, you noticed there is no trace of mana, right? She asked while putting her chin on her locked fingers. This surprised me even more, and I nodded without thinking. What was the thing powering this divine fire if not mana? Ian, you and I are different from the rest of those possessing an origin skill, she said with a serious face that made my mind forget everything and pay attention to her. This conversation was going to become more serious than I could think, and I knew. These were the first lesson of my teaching as her student. I'm seeing this for the first time too. But Ian, you can do it. You can use the energy that is one of the strongest in this world. The energy that is the most abundant and probably the hardest to handle. Something purer than even ether that makes most of the fundamentals of this world. Something that can be used as any energy. You have the highest affinity for it, but all this time you have been using mana, which is some of the most common sources of energy. This power, something only those with closest origin to the sun could have, is called Soul Nova. The primary function of your origin skill, Ian, is the freedom to use this power. You might think that how can you not know something like this for this long, but you knew it already. Deep down, you have used this energy instinctively many times to protect yourself. Just like when I found you. If you hadn't protected your mana core from the extreme energy input, you might have been long dead. That was foolish, but that foolishness led you here, so I won't scold you for that. She finished with a deep sigh. She was worried about me, but, well, I survived. So, I can use something better than mana or aura. I asked with a serious face. I had learned that she knew what she was saying, and I can believe her with all my being. She was the first person I had met that knew what an origin skill is or how to use it. If she can tell just from looking at me that I had such abilities, what more proof did I need? Yes, mana is like air, everywhere, and abundant. Aura is like fresh liquid water, present in a few places, but somewhat different. You can use mana just fine and you will surely achieve aura one day. It's commendable for a child your age. I'm fortunate to have such a unique student, she said with a radiant smile. I felt a bit embarrassed as we knew that I wasn't the best, just that my life had been full of disasters. I had no knowledge aside from the books I had read and things I had experienced. But when I looked at her, I felt envious as well as glad. She had knowledge and wisdom far beyond my understanding, and I could learn from her. This was something like getting a gift after clearing a hard challenge. Well, I was thankful for that. Ian, I know you are thankful, but instead of wandering in your thoughts, pay attention, she said passionately. Yes, ma'am. And an instinctive response escaped my mouth, reminding me of the old days. Good. So, while comparing all the countless existing energies, one of the most simple ones to understand, solnova, are rays of the sun or sunlight. Just like how plants can absorb sunlight to grow, we can absorb the abundant energy presented to us by the sun. In this enormous nature, few beings have the ability to use this energy. She continued and extended her hand. A whiteboard appeared before me, and explanations about different things started as she explained almost unreal things. Saying things at fast speed, and I was trying to understand the most I could on the spot, but thankfully I could remember everything. This accursed ability would be useful from now on, and from the way she explained everything in great detail, I know I would thank this ability. Solnova was basically sunlight, and I was like a plant that can absorb sunlight. My whole body, which can circulate energy better than others, was the perfect vessel to store this energy as a battery. So I was a solar battery? Well, that was the best explanation I could come up with, so yes, let's go with this. Traditionally, we absorbed the mana particles through breathing and circulating them inside the body, but this was different. As a user of Sun's blessing, I can absorb this power with my whole body. This was the highest level of mana gathering technique that was only used by those with a higher affinity with mana. But I can use it for this new energy. Though Solnova was less potent than mana, meaning I would have to use more of it for the same thing I could do with less mana, it had no great limitations. Like, I didn't need a mana core to use it. After mastering how to use it, I can use this however I wanted. But it didn't mean I would have an unlimited source of energy. No, not for now. There was a limit to how much output I can produce from this energy and how much this body of mine can handle at a time. In simpler terms, I was a machine that can grow and was attached to a sea of electricity. Now, even if I can use all the energy from this sea, I wasn't advanced enough to produce higher results nor good enough to intake more than needed. Master called these unique limitations blockage. So, I had to upgrade my body in order to gain more output of this energy. This reminded me of the Eastern cultivation stages. There was something more detailed thing like this, but it was different. It was internal energy cultivation, while this was source energy adsorption. Here, I wasn't cultivating the energy I have inside like mana cultivation, but just absorbed an absurd amount of energy to strengthen the limits of the physical body. There were 9 such blockages that prevented the output from increasing. They were limitations of the mortal body, and overcoming each one of them was a path toward the higher realm. These blockages had no relation to the original skill and the branch skills, so it was new knowledge altogether. Her explanation went on, and she continued like that for a long time, and I paid close attention to her every word. We forgot the flow of time as we both were enjoying this thing. She was talking with a beatific smile, as it overjoyed her to share the knowledge she had been holding on to for this long time. I, being someone that loved to know new things, was swimming in a new world of wisdom. Not only did she connect this topic with the Solnova, but also with the history and application of mana to different spells. This was my first lecture, and, with each passing second, it was getting more interesting than before. So, when using the normal, Tier 1, spell Fire, you will need 1 unit of mana, while that same spell with a different spell invocation method suiting to Solnova will consume 10 units. Though this is 10 times, the results would be the same, a normal small fire. As you have that peculiar knowledge, you know that fire is more powerful as we decrease the impurities, right? I'm intrigued to see such knowledge from another world. Though your life wasn't something we will talk about, that knowledge. I had fun studying it, she said, and then looked at me with a sorry expression. Those words had confirmed that she had read everything on my mind. So why did she even ask if those burgers were from my previous world? Well, that wasn't something to think of, as she had the eyes of someone that had just got a really great idea. Standing up from her seat, she looked at me and said, "Let's do some practical training." Her voice was cheerful, and her words intensified the burning fire in my heart. Hurriedly standing up, I grabbed her hand and we once again walked to the magic circle that led us outside of the tower for the first time. Outside of this magnificent tower, the grass-filled field, the tower behind me that looked to reach the sky, the fresh smell of nature, and the cool breeze of night. Yes, it was already night. The bright blue moon was shining as always, but now it was smiling down at us. As if it was happy to see something interesting after a long while, it smiled down at us. The starry sky was glittering with the moon, complementing the view from this place. We were standing just outside of the tower, and I could see the giant magic circle that seemed different from the others. She created this one with different materials and was more detailed than any others I had seen. Maybe it was something that let others in and out? Well, I didn't know, and it wasn't important right now. Looking at her back and eyes that reflected stars, I listened to her unbelievable words. So Ian, in normal terms, I'm what you can call a sage. But don't think too much about it. Magic using Soul Nova requires different magic circles that suit the energy's wavelength. I don't think you know this, but you can produce any kind of results with a certain type of energy if you have enough knowledge and understanding. Meaning an elementalist can use normal spells, or a high dark magician or even higher level demons can produce holy magic if mastered and understood. But it's only possible at prime strength that no normal being can have. The magic, this term, / is indeed creating things that seem magical, she said, and then snapped her fingers. Her words were unbelievable from start to finish, and I couldn't help but marvel at the fact that I was standing with someone at the level of a sage. This was more than what I can think of, and this meant that she was almost a celestial being. Which only left one scenario in my mind. She can only be one being that matched all the things I had seen until now, and it was the most unbelievable thing. Though I was thankful to her, I had no words to explain my emotions. But, well, she said not to worry, so I should try to at least not worry. Not that I could help but worry. A spell like fire can be turned into dark fire with enough knowledge, or even holy flames that carry divinity, she said while demonstrating it. This was what I called pinnacle, the strength that no one could have or fathom. First, a normal, orange-red fire burned before her hand, and then it spun purple-black that seemed dark. It was a dark feeling, not like the negative ones I felt with demonic or corrupted beings, but pure dark. Then, it suddenly turned into yellow flames that radiated purity. I could feel the higher realm of the light attribute from it, and this whole demonstration was fascinating. Watching the flames turn into something else in this moonlit land, I still thought this was some kind of dream. But it was reality, and she was the one creating such phantasm. You can also mimic other attributes if you understand them enough, like creating water from fire, or wind from the fire would be possible even if you just have an affinity of fire attribute. Like me, who only has an immense affinity of fire, can control other elements as I wish. She smiled at me, and one by one, different attributed spells popped up before us. Fire, water, earth, wind, light, and darkness were the primary elements of this nature. Then ice, thunder, a shockwave-like sound sphere, and a ball of higher gravity. They were the main secondary elements. Then there was also mist, spells of a natural attribute that grew plants, shadows for darkness attribute, and a ball of light that seemed holy. And they weren't the only ones. There are countless attributes in this nature, and everything has a wavelength. You can produce any of them if you find the suitable one for the type of energy you want to use. And if we apply this to knights who use aura, they could also use suitable spells. Though, as the basic destructive power of aura goes, it wouldn't support many spells of this nature. But doing such things would require tremendous mental fortitude and passion. You will have to train your mind to Ian. Though you're a reincarnation and someone with the greatest mind to learn this, you will still need more. Well, we can do that easily with enough time, so don't worry about that. She reassured while patting my head. I felt like a baby in front of her, and I precisely was. I had no knowledge, no wisdom, no powers, even close to her pinky finger. But I could gain it. I was confident I could learn at least a fraction of the vast knowledge she had, and that was enough to calm my hungry heart. Now I had to start from zero. Learn spells to use with this new energy that suited me the most. But I also wanted to use mana. Well, it wasn't like I would only have to use one type of energy. That aside, what type of training will we even do? I had no idea how to use this Soul Nova, much less utilize them in a spell. I was about to ask her the question, but then I was struck by a creepy smile from this gorgeous lady, sending shivers down my spine. The training method for this is very simple. It will hurt a little bit, but you will be able to use it after you experience it once with your whole body. Her words were twisted, and the excitement in those words was making me nervous. This little pain. How little are we talking about? Just the pain of a limb being cut off that I had already experienced, or even more than that. I gulped a mouthful of saliva after thinking for a moment and looked at her with doubtful eyes. How am I to experience this thing? This strangely reminded me of the time Dad and I did that. Yes, the Tier 1 thing. And I had a certain thought that this was going to be something similar. Gasp! Nature protects your humble child. In the vast fields of the grass, a lone boy sat there with his eyes tightly closed and blood seeping out of his nose, eyes and ears, covered by a bright orange light, and surrounded by 3 spheres of the same bright orange light. The boy screamed in agony as the pain increased with each passing second. This was painful but tolerable. Even though it seemed as if he was experiencing the sensation of being burned alive, there was a smile on his face. This feeling, he liked it. Not the pain or the loss of blood, but the changes happening to his body. He could feel that this was something he longed for, but never precisely knew what he wanted. As if a person lost in the endless ocean had finally found land. He had found something dear to him. Some distance away, an alluring lady was standing with the same light coming out of her hand. She was smiling bitterly at the smiling boy, who was enduring the sweet pain and the warmth of her touch. This was his first time, and she understood just how he would be feeling. Though painful, it was the sweet pain of happiness. He would be feeling warm, but the energy surging through his body was no normal thing. He was a mortal, a normal human who was gifted some unique power and possessed a tough brain like no other. This was also a tough thing, though, as she knew just what sort of past hardships he had gone through to possess a unique brain like this. But his smile was showing that he would be okay even after this burning pain. The start is always painful, but as time passed and you get familiar with the movements, you would get better. And he would learn faster than anyone. She did not doubt that. He was talented, after all, and his mind was just perfect to be her successor. And it rewarded her hopes when the painful expression cleared up from the boy's face after a long time, and he started absorbing the flowing energy from the giant balls of light. His start was painful, and there will be more painful things. But she knew that this boy, her student, and her grandson, can overcome them. She knew if there was someone that can grant her long-cherished wish, then it was him. Waking up from the terrible pain from moments ago, I tried to feel my body. It was a terrific experience, and I could feel the changes in my body clearly. I had gotten stronger. My mana pool had increased with this new type of special energy that was surging through my body like natural warmth. Though this was a transparent one with no color or special characteristics than the warmth, it was almost like a very thin mana. This was weird when thinking about it, but I didn't feel one bit uncomfortable. Instead, I was feeling more like myself than anything right now. I could feel my body, muscles, energy channels, and even the flow of mana and soul nova inside of me. Though peculiar, it was a good feeling. I now had an alternative power source, though I didn't know anything about it. It was small, but the amount of this new energy inside me right now was enough to cast 5 or 6 Tier 1 spells. And it was a lot, considering mana could only cast around 15 or 16 spells at that level. So, ultimately, I had more than enough power to kill a yellow, ranked creature on the higher side. I sighed as I saw the starry night sky. It was beautiful, and I loved just how good it looked. It's a good place for stargazing, right? She said as she sat down beside me. The process had been tough, and after finishing the absorption, I had just passed out on the ground. Though the feeling was good, it was exhausting, both physically and mentally. These plains of green grass, this gentle breeze of the night, this clear sky, and those celestial objects shining in the sky, laying down in this quiet place filled with natural voices and nothing else. This was too different from my days in the dark forest or even the green forest. I had never had a peaceful sleep in those places, aside from with Fern. And they filled the dark forest with things that loved darkness, so trying to sleep in that place was like finding peace in hell. I didn't have a sound sleep during my year-long stay in that damn place, and sometimes had passed where I would have to stay awake for weeks just to avoid some certain creatures homing a place. Those days were hell, and I can never forget them even if I wanted to. But this place, this endless-looking grass fields, that soft bed inside the tower, this even softer grass, they were something I never imagined I could have. From those hard grounds, tree branches, and unknown places to these divine places. Though the change was sudden and dramatic, it was a pleasant change. All this, from this marvelous place, the new strength and the new knowledge, was thanks to her. And even if I want to thank her with all my heart, I could never find the fitting words to express the dominant emotions filling my heart. But she could read them, so I didn't have to say it out. No need to thank me, little one. I'm doing something I want, but you will get hurt in this process countless times. Even after healing, you will remember the pain, and that isn't such a good thing. You are my successor, and you won't realize the meaning of that anytime soon. But rest assured, you will gain strength and knowledge, and you will definitely go back to your parents. And you're my grandson too, so I won't stop you from doing things you want to do in this place. This tower is huge, more than what it looks like, and is filled with things you won't believe are possible. Like the kitchen, library, or the garden we have seen. There are labs for alchemy, magic engineering, and witchcraft. There are also my smithy and workshop floors. But I don't think you will go there for a long time. She smiled while looking at me mysteriously. That smile was truly just mysterious. I didn't know what to understand about it. Well, if I can't understand, what's there the need to understand? Though I was curious about them, the kitchen and library caught my ears. Those two words were something I would check out first before anything. Well, I had time. I will know everything slowly as time passes, and things here were already so magical my heart couldn't contain the excitement. Looking at her on the other side, I wondered about that unparalleled appearance. She wasn't a human, and her appearance was exactly like a human. She didn't have the long ears of elves, a short feature of dwarves. She wasn't like anything a normal humanoid creature would have. I had a hunch about what she was, but I can never accept it. Maybe I looked at her for too long and she knew I was checking her out. Turning towards me, she smirked with that mischievous smile I had seen before. So, you really fall for me, my grandchild? Well, I wouldn't mind. She was saying some nonsense with a straight face in a genuine voice, and I didn't want her to finish that line. Cutting her off mid-sentence, I shook my head and shouted with a flushed face. Grandma, don't say it like that. My voice was loud, and in this quiet area, it was even louder than normal. Yes, yes, boy. We can still love each other without those things. Ooh. She laughed teasingly and patted my angry head. She was impossible to understand, and I didn't know why such emotions and expressions popped up when I was with her. Don't say something like that again. I mumbled in a weak voice while turning my head down on the grass. I couldn't see it, but I knew there was a smirk on that alluring face, and I had no idea how to control this blushing, fiery face. She was one thing, but I doubted that even the blue moon hanging in the sky would smirk at this sight. Good thing I was imagining the moon to be a gorgeous lady, or else I might start crying if I saw two creepy eyes and a mouth smiling down on me. What the hell am I even thinking? Even my mind wasn't on the right track right now, much less this bastard of a wild heart. This is my grandma, dude. An old lady that just looks amazing. But she is the grandma. Convincing myself was no use, and I knew I would have to just live with this. Though, I didn't hate this feeling. Yes, I loved her. Maybe as much as my family and maybe more, but not in the sense of attraction. Age didn't matter to me, as I was much older on the inside than now. And this world was already far above those petty things like race or gender. Everything was acceptable, and they praised strength and knowledge. The one thing everyone commonly hated was those damn demons, and having a common enemy was always a good thing. Looking at my grandma, who killed a demonic beast with no special effort, a question popped up in my mind that I couldn't resist. Grandma? Why are the demons one of the strongest races? What's so special about them? I was curious, as I didn't have much knowledge about them, but I knew she knew about those wicked creatures. I was just curious, but I wanted the answer to this one. Those demons had done something that I can't ignore. They will pay one day for sure. I will find that bastard no matter what. Don't do that to yourself, Ian. She tapped my head in a sudden, angry voice. You know what it is like to live for revenge, and you would do that to yourself again this time too if you think like that. Sure, the demons are powerful, but it's not like they are all bad or every one of them is a bastard like those who send you here. You will naturally learn about them as you grow up, so don't think about them. Actually, just forget about them and focus on the good side. Try to live for the family you so much cherish, the loved ones you have and will have, as well as me. She was serious and worried, and her voice. She was also sad. I stood up from the ground and just sat back down, not knowing what I was doing. My eyes were blank, filled with different, conflicting emotions as I looked at her. Her words were sudden, and they unexpectedly closed some wounds in my heart. I started crying without knowing the reason, and she was sad. For the first time, she hugged me with her warm body that was the same as her head pats. No, maybe this was far more than that. Yes, you can cry. I'm here, so don't worry. You have endured hardships, but there will be more in the future. But remember, Ian, my child, that being happy will be up to you. The decisions you make will be yours, and you won't be alone this time. There will be others you can rely on, and I'm always with you. If not like this, then at least in those memories. You will do fine without those useless feelings, so let it go. Not the desire for revenge, but that grudge against their whole kind. Her embrace was warmer than anything, filled with love, and I couldn't think of anything at this moment. She was right, and I knew that. I was even more glad I had her, and as she said, if those things hadn't happened, we wouldn't be together. The cool breeze of night passed as we stayed like that in that endless field of grass that glistened with the gentle moonlight. The night was long, and the future ahead of me would be more different than I might think. The first time hurt like hell, but it was warm. I experienced a new world that day. That warmth, that gentle touch on my skin, that painful but fulfilling feeling. Those were some of my best first times. After that, abundant energy penetrated my whole body and created the channels necessary for the usage of this skill. I suddenly became stronger. Like, I could use the mana inside my body more freely, and use the new type of energy that was stored in every part of my body with even more proficiency. It was thinner than mana, but I knew I could use it with even more proficiency than mana. Right now, this was at the tier 0 when compared to mana. But, unlike mana stored in my mana nucleus, I stored this power in my whole body. So, even at this stage, I can use tier 1 spell easily. Though it finishes pretty quickly and I would need a longer time to recover than mana, it was a better source of energy than mana. If I say that the current me can store 20 units of mana, then the current me can store 100 units of Soul Nova. So, if 10 units of mana equals 100 units of Soul Nova, then I had an extra mana equivalent to one more tier 1 mana nucleus. This was crazy. If I can harmonize all of this, which wasn't likely right now, I may be able to use the tier 3 spell at tier 2. Well, these were just some personal explanations, and things would change in the future. All these energies differed from each other. Soul Nova was more special among the most existing higher-level energies. And I was sure that I can push it to a similar amount as tier 2 in at least a year. It had been almost 3 months since I had trained this energy. I learned how to absorb it through sunlight, how to channel it, and spells that corresponded with this energy. They were complex, like real complex, and if not for the fact that I can remember everything and store that information in my mind, I was sure I would faint from just looking at one of the simple spells. Master taught me many things aside from this in the meantime. She wasn't just a mage. She was someone that had mastered a weapon too. Her weapon, that whip. No. That snake-like thing seemed to possess a mind of its own. I did not know how the hell something like that could move like it was alive and had the movements of a high-level creature. But it was fascinating every time it thrashed me. She was defiantly at least a queen. That meant she could use aura to its full capacity. And yes, aura. For the first time in my life I saw aura. Her aura. And it was gorgeous, just like her. It wasn't white like her flames, nor oranges like her hair, or blue like her eyes. Her aura was gold. And when I say gold, I meant pure fluid gold. It was a perfect aura, unlike the initial aura that I will soon have. Her aura, something noble, rich, filled with authority and dignity, as well as something that flowed in search of something. As all aura possessed a nature, this one possessed a nature too. And it was seeking something. I had an idea it was connected to the wish she mentioned, but I won't think much about that. She could do things with aura that I could never think were possible. From coating it on her weapon, shooting it, releasing its might, materializing it in weapons, to the point that I couldn't even fathom. She was amazing, and the mastery she had over all her powers was unpaneled. I couldn't even begin to describe the things she knew and had taught me in that short amount of time. I had a long way to achieve aura because of my uniqueness. One can achieve aura through two means, either by experiencing life or death situations or by gaining enough knowledge and understanding of the weapon one used. A knight didn't just use a sword. Though there was discrimination against those who used other weapons as a knight, they counted all weapon wielders as knights. Of course, not anyone could become a knight. They needed the powerful mind and body of a knight that was superior to a normal human. I had enough strength and life and death experience to have awakened aura, but I still hadn't. So, the only other option I had was to study archery and understand the bow and arrow. And when I showed her my archery that I had honed with my life on the line in this forest, she sighed. She freaking sighed at my lifelong training. This was just okay in her eyes, and she meant it when she sighed at it. She pitied me, and I could feel her emotions. It wasn't at least crap, but my archery was at just normal level in her eyes. In her eyes only, so I was better than most at the very least. But that pitiful look didn't go well with me. I started archery once again, and, for the first time in my life, I had someone to guide me. I had someone to point out the countless flaws I had, and she even taught me other things. Aside from that, we also played in this vast tower. And this place, I didn't have any words to describe just how fascinating a place it is. Each floor was something special, and though I had only been to 15 floors, for now, just exploring one floor would take a day or even days. And, aside from the garden and that divine place that had made a place in my soul, the 42nd floor library of true knowledge, the only other place I loved the most among these 15 floors was Perfect Kitchen. That place was heaven. Like real heaven to me. I didn't see these floors in order, but what I had seen in this place was enough to make it the best construction of all times. Something that we can even compare to ancient structures in dungeons and labyrinths. And that damn kitchen was more modern than anything I could ever think of. Just the idea that this whole place was a kitchen was absurd, but it was true. Well, that was that, and Master and I loved cooking. She was good at everything, and cooking was one of them, but she didn't cook herself much. We only had her cooking a few times, and God, it was divine. That was the level I wanted to reach from my ordinary level now. Even if she stops teaching this stuff, I had to learn to cook from her at the very least. That taste, those perfect flavors, that aroma. I was blessed to have something that divine once in a while. Today was ending as the sun set down, and today was the day I would talk to my family for the second time. Once again, this will be a small meeting, but it would be better than the last time we talked. My days here were passing smoothly, excluding the hell I experienced every day in her training. And I hoped theirs would be the same too. I hoped that all of them are safe and healthy. Ian, you ready? I asked when we reached the communication orb in the garden. He was nervous that he was going to see his whole family this time. This child had no idea about himself, but he will know about it today. He was nervous, but at least the smile on his face showed he was fine. Looking at me with calm eyes, he nodded with a smile. He was a tough one, even from my point of view. In all the long lives I had lived in this nature, all the creatures I had met and all the humans I had seen were far different from this one. He was different, in his astral and physical body. He was a reincarnation, so he had the natural advantage over other humans, but his origin was special too. There had been many reincarnations throughout the history of this continent, but none of them had an origin related to the sun. Not a human, at least. As someone born from it, I knew just how deep this origin was, and calling it superior among all other origins wouldn't be false. Nature was deep, and understanding her future intentions were difficult to even for someone like me. Even though I once stood on the pinnacle of the world and looked down at mortals, as time passed, I understood the truths of this vast world. They concerned me, and he will have to face them inevitably. His fate was filled with thorns, but it was as warm as the gentle touch of sunlight. I had to build the foundation for his future during the time he had me. After that, he will start his new life. His new life as someone stronger than before and a better being than he was now. He was no pure being, nothing was in the true self. What we consider good, pure, or nice might be bad, cruel, or evil for others. Even the world didn't have a single point of view against the good-evil thing. Though his life had been something unimaginable, his past was not something one could look away from. He had some darkness deep inside him, and he knew I knew everything about him. That darkness was part of him, and nothing can be perfect. But it would be his strength when he would have to face his worst enemies. And he knew that, too. His past was nothing ordinary, and he was someone that had lived a life of solitude. But in this life he had people to protect, people to love, and people to relay on. He wasn't alone, and that was his path. I had the greatest wisdom, but even I didn't know exactly what would happen in the future. But from however I knew he will be okay. The people that will come into his life, the special person he will meet, to the dramatic things that might happen in the future. But I can't be certain of anything. Well, I will make him strong enough to stand on his own when needed. They will be with him anyway, and if things went right, this little grandson of mine will meet someone as special as him. His special someone, something he didn't think was possible in his dark previous life. I'm too old, but this era sure would be fascinating, I thought as he stood before the crystal orb. Nodding at him, I started the artifact. The connection connected, and the view of the other side became visible. This artifact used thoughts and feelings as a reference to search for the one you want to talk with, and this time, his parents were gathered in a bedroom with many other people. There were some quite interesting people among them, and everyone was eager to talk with their beloved Ian. He was more famous than he can think there, but he will only realize it after some time. So, their meeting might have needed more time than what we had, but alas, they would have to think of something else if they wanted to talk more. And just telling them was no fun. Luckily, there was someone capable enough to figure out the key to this. Their child was fine with me, so even though they had made that unique thing to know of his conditions that went complex every once in a while, they didn't have to worry about him. This little one was fun to teach, so we were getting closer to each other every passing day. Something that I had never thought could happen in this long time. What can I do, though? He was special, as well as cute. Teasing him was also one of the best things happening in this boring life of mine. After coming here and creating this special place in this hell for normal, I had no reason to even do anything. This was my grave, and I was spending a lazy, comfortable life doing things I wanted. I had decided that this would be my home for the rest of my life. But then, he showed up here. Came would be inappropriate since he was almost dead back then, but, well, he was nothing less than a miracle. His teased face was cute, and even from my point of view, this child was beautiful. His mind was also similar to mine, making him perfect to be my successor. Though he was no genius like some he will meet, he had the strongest will to learn and a mind that could remember everything. He was an excellent kid, but he was pitiful. Though I was nervous, the excitement was clear in my behavior. The crystal ball was being connected like last time, and after 3 months of harsh training, I could talk to them again. I had said that I would call them at this time, but things might be different there. I had to control my beating heart. This bastard that didn't react even in the face of death was now on a roller coaster ride. I knew little about them, but just meeting them in the short time we had would be good enough. If we had more time, we might have talked more, but this was still good enough for me. The picture cleared up, and a beautiful bedroom appeared on the other side. Mom, Dad, and my darling little sister Anna were sitting together, probably waiting for me. There were another 2 families of 3 with them. The first one had a handsome man with short sea-blue hair and sea-blue eyes, a fine body, and an alluring and dignified lady with red hair and green eyes, sitting with each other. The man was anxious, and the lady was comforting him. A young girl with similar red hair and sea-blue eyes with a sword around her waist was looking around, waiting for something to happen. Something similar was happening on the other side. A man with a stern posture, green shirt, and thick black cloak around his shoulders was holding hands with a beautiful lady with pink hair and, wow, I could tell just from looking that those purple eyes were special. The restless boy on the other side had the same eyes as this lady and hair as the dignified man. These were two families, and they were quite special in themselves, but not as much special as the one on the very back. A middle-aged couple that looked more attractive than others were waiting patiently with an old man in a butler-like outfit by the door. The lady with long, ocean-blue hair that seemed like part of the ocean itself and eyes like mom was sitting on a small couch with the middle-aged man. The most special person in this entire room, and someone with short blonde hair and a perfectly groomed beard with sea-blue eyes. Couldn't believe it. I knew this person. In fact, almost the whole of the empire knew this person. He who had won countless wars, someone whose mere presence could change the winds of the battlefield. The Golden Hammer and an imperial hero. 12th seat of the House of Prism, one of the 18 Knights Kings of the great Roxana Empire. Someone I looked up to and dreamed of meeting at least once in my life. That very person I couldn't mistake for anyone else was sitting in the same room as my family. Ian, a beautiful woman shouted in a bright voice. Finally, the handsome man sitting next to her exclaimed just like her. But their voice wasn't as attention-grabbing as the third one. Big brother. The cute girl sitting on her dad's lap stood up and jumped down from the huge bed. Running towards the front where nothing could be seen, she stopped before something, as if something were before her. Everyone other than them was surprised by their sudden scream. They couldn't see anything where the three were looking at. The room was still the same empty one that it had been. There was nothing but, suddenly, a screen-like round mirror with a boy's image became visible to everyone. Everyone was surprised, and the young girl with red hair and the green-haired boy even screamed in surprise as they were looking at that exact same spot at that time. The sudden appearance of this thing surprised them, but, after a moment, smiles appeared on their faces. Ian. And the first one to shout was the man with sea-blue hair. This person was handsome, but the way he snapped out in tears was unexpected for the boy, who had his eyes glued on the middle-aged man. The man was crying, and there was no choice but to calm him down first. So, the little girl walked up to him and kissed his tear-vetted cheeks. "Calm down, uncle. He's here, so you should show him the thingy. That weird thing you and Daddy did in your room. You spend entire nights and even didn't play with me. Finish it so that we can talk." The little girl was tiny but still succeeded in calming the crying man down. "Oh yes," he said as he cleared his tears. With a hesitant look on his face, he took out some papers from his storage ring and held them before him. "Ahem. Nice to finally see you, Ian. I'm Nal's big brother and your uncle. First of all, as we have little time, copy this formula and solve it later. We tried it for the first time, but this is a kind of letter so we can have more words. Just quickly copy this first. It's easy, so you will be able to solve it or ask your teacher," he said while holding the paper with various text and geometrical designs. This sudden situation greatly confused the boy on the other side. But then he looked at the other side where his master was smiling at them. She had a satisfied smile, and after seeing this, the boy just sighed. This was a way he never thought of and something that sounded exciting. Looking at the paper just once, he looked at his uncle and smiled.
Ok, uncle.
Done. The man on the other side was surprised, but he just turned the page and the boy was done intently. There were nearly 90 pages, and this whole thing ended in about a minute, as the boy was faster at this than they had thought. "Ian, do you have something to record this?" the uncle asked with worried eyes. But, instead of an answer from the boy, he heard the chuckles from his parents sitting at the back. They knew their boy, but not others in this place. With an awkward look, the boy smiled and scratched the back of his head. Well, something like that. His answer was unclear, but it was enough for the small time they had. The uncle backed away, and the boy shifted his gaze to the middle-aged man once again. The man smiled at him warmly, and the boy's back straightened. The mirror floated towards the old couple and stood exactly before them. The boy on the other side bowed his head respectfully to them and said in a respect-filled voice, "It is a pleasure to meet the hero of the Empire. I guess from the looks of things you're my grandfather? Still, it's my honor to greet such a hero. And you as well, Lady Griselda. To think I will be related to exceptional individuals such as you two. I couldn't express this joy." The boy had tears of joy in his eyes as he looked at them with still respect-filled eyes. Everyone else in the room sighed helplessly at this sight. In the end, the boy who was being praised as a little hero in the Empire was just a boy at the end. Someone that looked up to a prominent figure and, even after being the grandson of such a person, he joyfully greeted them with respect. This was his first time knowing he was related to someone as great as them, and still, there was the happiness of meeting them in his eyes more than anything. The couple smiled bitterly at this sight, and the lady spoke first in a warm voice that was similar to the boy's master. "Axion, we understand you are happy to see us, but right now we aren't here as the famous figures we are, but as your grandparents. Don't embarrass us with your bow. Look up and smile, little one. This is our first time seeing our grandchild. Let us be a little greedy and have this talk." She was his grandmother, and though her voice was similar to his master's, they were the same emotions. He could feel the warmth in her voice and hear the dissatisfied voices from the back. "Grandma, how can you do that? It should be my turn. I'm his big sister." The red-haired girl shouted at the grandma. "No, big brother Ian is my rival. I should be the first." This time it was the boy with green hair. "No. How can big brother and big sister do that? Anna should be the first one." The little girl wasn't going to back down on this one either. The fight of the young surprised the adults as well as the boy on the other side. He had a complicated expression on his face as he looked at three kids fighting with each other. His brother may be his uncle's son, his own little sister, and the big sister that seemed most eager to fight him more than talk. That was some fierce battle to have the first chat, and seeing this, he couldn't help but laugh. "Ha ha ha. Yes, my brother and sisters. This isn't the last time, and we have this letter-like thing for long chats. Why don't we just end with everyone's introduction? I know my uncle, grandfather, and grandmother. So how about everyone else and that grandpa by the door?" His words grabbed everyone's attention, and they looked toward the door. Indeed, there was someone by the door that seemed to have missed everyone's eyes. The grandpa by the door was the most surprised by this, and the bitter smile on his face was clear. "Greetings, everyone, and you as well, young Master Axion. It is a pleasure to finally meet you." The grandpa in the butler's uniform greeted the boy on the other side with a happy bow. "Yes, nice to meet you too." The boy was also greeted with a smile. There was something different about this person, and he knew that. This person strangely seemed familiar to him, but he wasn't certain. At least, he was sure that this person was good. "Ian, this is Grandpa Jean. He's been to our house, but you might not have seen him. He also has a origin skill," his mother said in her cheerful voice. She was happy that her son was safe and, at last, now he knew about himself. He knew that he had a big family and one that loved him. After hearing that this grandpa also had an origin skill, there was a surprise on his face, but then it returned to normal. "I would love to talk more about it when I can be there, Grandpa." His voice was sad, but there was hope and an acceptable smile on his face. Though he had said in a low voice, this didn't go well with them, and they just moved it aside. Everyone fell silent, and the room became dead calm. This sudden sadness didn't go well with the little girl watching everything from the side, and she spoke up. "Okay, I will introduce everyone to Big Brother," she said in a cheerful voice. It looked like she wanted to elevate this gloomy atmosphere when they had such small time. And the butler also understood that, so he picked up his little miss. "Good Grandpa." She smiled at him and patted his head with her small hands. This was a special sight to behold for the ones that knew this grandpa well. He was a merciless assassin, but here, the little miss was treating him like some big white puppy. And seeing this, they all laughed with a pure smile. the loudest being the middle-aged man and the little one's grandfather. The boy on the other side also cheered up and looked at his brave little sister. So, big brother. This is a big sis sortie, Carla. And this is big brother Magicy, Alf. They play with me and even show me cool things. She chuckled as she pointed at the two children. The girl looked mature for her 10-year self, and the boy was even more mature than her, even after being only 8. Their appearance was naturally pretty, just like their parents. The beauty ran in their family from the looks of it. Both of them just waved at him while the boy with short green hair looked at him with fierce eyes filled with fire. This was a pure fire of passion, respect, and love towards this boy on the other side. The girl gave him a smile that was enough to tell him that she had many things on her mind and that she was waiting for the day they crossed weapons. They didn't say anything, and the little girl continued. This is the magic uncle who can fly like daddy, and this is toy uncle who gives me many toys. She cheerfully introduced the two in her own way. Her cute little voice was pleasing to the heart, so no one minded being called anything, especially the two who seemed to love their niece much more than usual. They also waved at him, and the little girl continued. She looked at the two ladies sitting with each other and asked the butler to put her down with them. The reason was the tearful lady with pink hair. Big brother, this is my friends, Auntie August and Auntie Hayes. They both miss you like mom, so when you get back, play house with us first. Okay? She asked while patting the lady with pink hair. Ian, take care. Lady with pink hair said as she looked at the boy, and he smiled from the other side as he looked at both of them. Promise. And I will take better care of myself, so don't you worry. Looks like it's already time, so everyone, take care. I will read the letter as soon as possible, and next time, I will try to write one too. Stopping for a second, the mirror went back and the boy on the other side looked at his whole big family. With watery eyes, he exhaled. I really have a big family, and everyone here is special. Grandfather, grandmother, Grandpa Jean, my two gorgeous aunties, and lovely uncles, big sister Carla and little Alf. Mom, Dad, and you, little one, please take care of yourself and each other. I will try my best to get back as soon as possible, so don't worry about me. I'm fine. The boy finished as the mirror started disintegrating and everyone burst out in goodbyes. Ian, call me Carla. That big sis shit is not acceptable. The girl should, and her words didn't surprise anyone. Big brother Axion, remember that I'm the best mage. The boy next to her shouted in the same voice. Baby, take care of yourself. You still do dangerous things once in a while, but if it's something like training, I can't say anything in that matter. The boy's silent mother finally spoke. And the boy just nodded at her with a helpless, warm smile. Just like them, everyone spoke at once, so it mixed the voices up, but he understood them no less. See you soon, everyone. And, with the boy's last words, the mirror vanished in this air, leaving a tranquil room behind. This was unbelievable at first, but they had seen it with their own eyes, and this was enough. Lost in their own thoughts, the room was silent, and the saddest ones here were the 3 children. The youngest girl wasn't a problem, but to alleviate the mood of the 2 young children, their grandfather, and the little girl's teacher had to tell them the truth. Carla, Alf, you saw him, right? The same Axion we praise so much. Your brother that had something different about him? His different eyes filled with fire. I know you saw them clearly. He is stronger than you might think. So, if you want to catch up, instead of being sad, let's all of us do our best. He will also love to see it. His words were enough to spark new flames in their eyes and make the adults in the room sigh with a smile. The little girl wasn't ready for these things, and they hadn't even played with her much. All the children in their house were special, but this little one received the most love as the normal one. And so, their day had ended with this talk and exchange of words and introduction. They would talk every 3 months, but this first meeting was engraved in each one of their hearts. In the open fields, sparks and fire of clashes were filling the entire area with their melody. Sparks that seemed like fire, attacks aimed to defeat the opponent, and sounds that harmonized with each other, creating an unexpected melodious sound.
Boom!
The fire, thunder, or other elements blasting out at the figure standing in the middle was looking at the boy attacking her with all his might with a smile. The attacks weren't even reaching her. The arrows and spells fired at her from all directions were strong, but just when they got near her, they just vanished. As if all the attacks were clashing with an impenetrable wall that absorbed anything sent at her. She just stood there with the silver whip hanging around her waist. Looking at the boy with straight eyes, who sees nothing but her, she smiled with admiration. The place they were fighting was vast, and all these spells did not affect it at all. It was the same green grass that danced with the slow breeze of the afternoon. The sky was clear, and the enormous monument in the distance was standing strong. The same as ever. The boy was wearing white clothes, his gold-like hair short and his eyes shining as he used the spells. His magic was special and strong. The fire he fired at her was refined. The wind was sharper than most, and the spears made of earth were strong while the blades of water cut everything in its path. Just that the green grass regrow every time it was cut. But he didn't just stop with these spells. As he stood some distance away, ice-blue magic circles appeared behind him. 3 magic circles appeared at the same time and started creating icy winds and water around them. The water gathered, the temperature decreased, the water froze, and then the shape changed into fine weapons, ready to attack anything. His eyes locked on the target, filled with fire to at least make her lift her finger. He wore black shoes that seemed peculiar, and the golden necklace glowed as he fought. Shadow dive, the boy said in an inaudible voice and vanished from the place. He stood just after the 3 spears of ice were shot at her. A smirk appeared on her face, and without even looking at the ice spears, she turned her face towards the side and smiled as if looking at something. And indeed, the very next second, a long lance-like arrow shot toward her. This arrow was special, long, and just from a look we could tell this was no normal weapon. Covered with peculiar text, its unusual lance-like appearance gave off an aura similar to the person it belonged to. With a sun-like pattern on its body, the arrow glowed in a golden light, coved by cool air. The small red gem engraved at the very end of it seemed like the heart of this alive arrow. It flew out of nowhere, and the speed it had achieved in that short time and already broken the natural sound barrier. The golden arrow was coming at her with powerful force, and the energy it carried was also fierce. Seeing this made her smile, and this time, unlike before, she moved and lifted her finger with a radiant smile. "Very good, Ian. You have improved," she said and snapped her fingers. Snap. That small snap created power enough to break the sound barrier, as well as created a ripple that clashed with the arrow. This was a fierce clash between 2 powerful attacks, and the sparks, as well as blowing wind, was enough to make the ground barren. It created a crater at the point of their collision, and the blowing wind sent ripples that pulled out grass from their peaceful home like ground. The smoke rose, and an unexpected smoke that came out of nowhere covered the area. "Too petty, little boy," she smirked as she turned her shining blue eyes that seemed to look through everything. A ball of thunder flew in her direction with a crackling sound. This was a spell stronger than any past ones. The power in it was clear, and the speed was also fierce, but the fundamental aspect of this ball of lightning was its pure destructive power. This was a Tier 3 spell, ball of lightning, and the one that used it was the same boy that looked no more than 10 years old. His physiques were well built, not too bulky, but just perfect for an archer. Though we couldn't see his body underneath those big but special clothes, just his outline was enough to determine these things. He was cute and handsome, but that didn't change the fact that this young boy was now a Tier 3 mage. Well, this battle was beyond just some Tier 3 mage student and a master. He aimed the attack at what seemed like the blind spot in her impenetrable defense. But it was still just futile against the one that looked through the spell and lifted her hand at this deadly, Tier 3, spell. The ball of thunder collided with her hand, which was actually just for play from her side. This spell couldn't penetrate her passive defense, but still, she used her hand to just destroy the ball of thunder. "Come out, boy. You shouldn't overdo yourself. We agreed on a weekly. Try again next time." She aimed her words at the silhouette of the boy in the mist while the bare, beautiful hand that had just destroyed a spell was the same as before. This strength was terrifying, but an even more terrific thing about this gorgeous lady was her smirk. She didn't hold back her ridicule in fights, showing her genuine emotions of strong. And this was the respect she showed to the person that had managed to make her lift her hand in this entertaining battle. After her words and the fierce fight that had been going on since dawn, she thought that this was the end. And it should have been the end from the point of view of any sane person after expending so much mana, stamina, and concentration. But the boy that got visible after the mist cleared up was smiling while looking at his master. This was the smile same as hers, but unlike her power-showing smirk, this was the smirk that hadn't given up on the fight just yet.
Asta.
Execute, Act 1. The boy said, and then his body melted into the shadows. You little. She shook her head at the foolish act of this foolish student of hers. But the smile on her face never changed this whole time. This was fun. For her and the boy that had almost run out of all the energy from this long battle. This was, as always, the last attempt of this cockroach. And she knew he would do it the most flashy way he could. Saving the most fun things for the last was his hobby, and she liked this thing in their spars. And this time, too, she didn't move from the spot she had started with from the dawn. They were just playing at the moment, just that the boy's life would be threatened in this fun process. Well, he was fearless, and the air that had changed was the proof of his foolishness. Oh my! She smiled as she saw through the mist and noticed what was going on at this moment. He was indeed saving the most fun things for the last as 6 magic circles had appeared around her, surrounding her from all sides. There was no chance of escape this time, and these magic circles weren't of normal mana. She knew them, and they were all Tier 3 Soul Nova variants of the mana spells. Naturally, all of them were more powerful than usual, but being able to cast 6 spells at the same time, and of unique attributes at that, was something only he could do. His special spell method, Script Magic, was something he could use because of his special mind. But still, the concentration consumption to activate these 6 spells at once. She knew this was his current limit, and he was already overdoing himself while giving his all in this last attempt. This fool. She loved him. But still, this won't be enough, Ian, she said cheerfully, and the spells shot at her from all directions. Lifting her hand with quick action, she snapped again, this time twice. Snap, snap. 2 shock waves flowed out from them, and this time, the 2 collided with each other, increasing the power of the oscillations. The new power born from this burned the air, and a ring of black fire devoured all spells like they were delicious. Boom! The powerful spells created with much difficulty by the poor little boy vanished without a trace, and the aftershock of this was strong enough to create a crater around this lady. Around her, not the place she was standing on. That small area was the same as ever, with green grass filling it naturally. See, futile. Let's go in and have a bath. She was still smiling from the futile actions of her student, but the area after the attack was too quiet, and a sudden presence failed her nigh-perfect senses. Little bastard. She shook her head, and this time, in the split second she left her spot that she had guarded like a fortress. She was fast, even faster than the attack that came with unmeasurable speed. Boom! On that exact spot, the same arrow that was stuck some distance away, fall like a meteorite. Colorless energy, different from mana, densely covered the lance like arrow. The way it had just fallen from the sky or been shot down by the fool that had jumped high in the sky was something only that little one could do. But now, he was falling just like the arrow, and there was nothing he can do to cushion this fall. His life was on the line, but this bastard was smiling victoriously. He had achieved his goal for today. His master had moved from her starting spot for the first time, and that was a marvelous achievement in itself. And though he had foolishly used almost all the Soul Nova in that last attack, which now created a crater bigger than the last one, he was overjoyed with the outcome. His body slowly fall onto the ground, and she caught it with her gentle hands while still in mid-air. She was floating in the sunset sky with her beloved student with an angry expression. Dummy. Fool. Moron. She pouted like a little girl and she slowly floated down while carrying his lifeless body. Smack! Landing safely on the ground. The first thing she did was smack this fool's head, and an instinctive reply escaped his mouth. Ouch! But I won, Grandma. And those were his last words and weak smile before he fall unconscious in his grandma's safe hands. Looking down at this imbecile, the only thing she could do was sigh. Fool. She grumbled and carried him inside after clearing up all the mess and taking the long arrow with her. Today's training was fun for them. But now, she would have to wait the whole night to punish this fool for this. The vast grass fields returned to normal, waving in the winds of the evening breeze. The night was upon them, and the look of this now familiar place had not changed one bit. Slowly opening my eyes on the familiar soft bed. The dim light of the room cleared the view before me. The ceiling that had become familiar over the past year I had been here, the magic lights on the other side, the soft touch of the bed. And of all of them, the familiar presence of old scent. I won. Finally, I mumbled with a smile, knowing just what kind of face she would be making. And as I knew, a smack flew towards my head. Ouch! It was painful, but the fact that I won this time didn't change. Yes, you did. After an entire year, you finally made me move from my spot. But she stopped, and I looked on the other side. I knew what type of face this grandma of mine would be making. As our eyes met, she looked down at me from her chair. Those pure blue eyes were angry, and I knew the reason. You fool. Did you use almost all of Soul Nova in that last one? That much desperation? And that was after using almost all of your mana? Do you know what happens after that severe draining? Death. Foolish child. Death. What would I do if you die on me just to win like that? She shouted, and I smiled at this reaction. It was really something to see the person I took an entire year to just make her move from her starting place like this. And that was after using everything I had prepared through this time. But one thing was certain. I was now stronger. Strong enough to stand against geniuses of other races my age. Reaching Tier 3 at the age of 10? That was some really special stuff, but it was true. And I wasn't that special for this achievement. Many were as strong as me at my age, and many were far stronger than my current self. I had read and gained unparalleled knowledge in the library on the 48th floor, so I knew those things. That place was heaven. Though it restricted me in some areas because I was weak at the moment, as the area opened up and I gained access to new knowledge as I got stronger. There were books on everything. From today's knowledge to the ancient knowledge of the past. That magical place had books of everything, from stories of children to the super tough books of magic. Those thick tomes, that sweet, old scent, that beauty, were incredible. But, well, I was now used to unreal stuff after living in this place for the past year. But this angry master of mine was the most enjoyable thing I loved, and her cooking. Okay, master, I deserve the harshest punishment. But, isn't it night? Shouldn't we have dinner first? I genuinely smiled and tried to get up from the bed. It wasn't the best idea to use almost all the energy in my body, but I wasn't foolish enough to use it all. I wasn't someone that would risk my life in a fight I wasn't sure about. I had planned today's fight for a long time and calculated all potential outcomes. From the first fight with my master a year ago, I knew the endless difference in strength. I was still nowhere near her strength. Our spar sessions were once every week, and what we did in them was up to us. She had never once moved from the place she had started. She did not need to. Her passive magic defense was something only Asta, my partner weapon, could breach. And that was also only because she was using only one type of shield from the first fight. Deciphering that magic. No, that was not magic. That almost indigo ranking passive skill was horrible. Just the way they made it made me pass out every time I tried to understand it. But, after 5 months, I had successfully created a counter for that shield. And after taking a month to enchant that specific algorithm in Asta, it had become the sole weapon that can pierce that specific shield. But I knew damn well this old lady wasn't using the strangest or even stronger one of her abilities. In fact, she had never used a single skill or magic to attack me. All I had got were the physical combat lessons and physical beating every once in a while. That was enough to remind me of the way they had beaten me up in the forest, and probably more. I knew I was going to get punished for today, but, well, that was already decided when I started to make this plan, so no regrets. Getting up and seeing the wordlessly walking grandma, I caught up to her and held her hand. The room was just dimly lit, and she was just walking out without saying anything. I knew she was sad, as well as disappointed. Sorry, Master, I genuinely apologized for worrying her like that. Though we both knew nothing serious can happen to me in her presence, she still worried about me. I knew you are a fool, but pulling this kind of stunt is a no. Do it slowly, Ian. Yes, you are getting stronger every day, but people worry about you. Even though I know of your plans, strengths, and thinking, they don't. I can't stop you, but you are precious to me in many ways. Not just as a student, as a successor, or as my lovely grandson, but as someone I cherish dearly. Well, I had to say, that was one hell of a fight. I won't mind a similar one with less danger, all right? She smiled and, as patted my head. Her warm touch was now familiar, but still as gentle and special as the first time. Even after knowing I would do that, she didn't move from her place because she couldn't block that sudden attack, but because I was falling. Calculating that thing was also difficult, and this result was the fruit of my endless labor. So, even with petty tricks, I had successfully made my OP master move from the spot she would start. I won. I mumbled under my breath and smirked at her. Looking at me with a really annoyed smile, she shook her head. Go wash up, you fool. With the last smack, she walked out, and I stayed in the room to change the clothes I was wearing. This was also some good armor, but it won't work from tomorrow, as I knew. I was in for some harsh punishment. Well, the divine dinner will be enough reward for this triumphant victory. Master is having fun, but Grandma is mad. You two love each other, just like me. My cheerful little friend came out and sat down on my head. She was also receiving training from a master, and it surprised me we could do things like this, too. Seals was more special than she could think, and I was really blessed to have her. On the 25th floor of the Eternal Tower, or what I named it, Seals and I reached the dining area and kitchen. This place was exceptional and divided into two parts. The kitchen area was a divine place filled with all kinds of magic equipment, artifacts, and ingredients. The first time I came here, I had left blankly staring at this heavenly sight. This was amazing, and she used every tool I didn't even have the knowledge of with such proficiency that it left me speechless every time I saw it. And even now, after a year, I wasn't fully familiar with everything here. Well, I wasn't here for making something, but to eat the food Grandma would make tonight. Wearing my pajamas and strolling into the kitchen, I sat down at one of the tables she had prepared for today. Perfect timing, she said without looking back, and summoned her special white flames in her hand. The ingredients she used in her special meals were so special, according to her, I can't even think of processing them by normal means. Well, she said she was almost done, so it meant something delicious was on its way. She was working on the other side of the giant kitchen island, and, from the looks of it, she was already done. She was a saint of cooking if not for magic. I dare say. That speed, control, and flavor weren't something anyone can produce. I knew from experience. But, well, I didn't think much about what I was eating or what it actually was. The gorgeous-looking, aesthetic, deliciously aromatic, perfect-flavored, heavenly meals she made were divine. Just like right now. A unique aroma filled the room. An aroma that could mesmerize. A scent that pierced the nostrils and tickled the brain. This was the magic of her cooking, and it was enough to just smell this fragrance. But I had been eating it and will eat it today too, or now. Okay. Ian's favorite. Agnola steaks and Nortinian pasta with kiwio sauce. The ice cream will be ready by we finish, so let's start. Oh, and Seals, your favorite purple light flowers are ready too. She finished the serving with a freshly picked purple flower from the garden that Seals loved. The garden was heaven for Seals, and she can roam around there freely for however long she wanted. Eating the lights with different flavors was delightful for her, and she loved this particular flower. My appraisal skill couldn't appraise it, so I didn't know what it was at first, but After searching through books in the library, I found it. And, well, let's not talk about what this was because just the fact that we had an abundance of them in the garden was preposterous. And though I didn't know what these dishes we were eating were, I loved them from the first time she made them. Serving everything, she sat down before me and signaled me to start. With an already delighted smile, I started with a piece of this implacable steak. And that exceptional taste was just like always. Exquisite. This was the start of the dinner. And the evaluation from the fight some time ago. You did well this time, Ian. She started with a small piece of meat and I gathered my attention like always. Your basic archery skills have reached the point I have nothing else to teach in that field. Now, from now on, you will have to find the path you want to walk. And that process is slow and beautiful. You will have fun when you explore the world and understand yourself. You are about to achieve aura too. Maybe a year at most? Yes, that much will be enough if you go through this phase. So, your archery training will be on you and I know you will do well. She finished eating the first bite and continued with the soft pasta. Her words were expected, and I knew a day like this would come. Everyone had their own paths, and now I was ready to find my own. The path of the bow and arrows and the path of a magic archer. But it was still far away. I nodded and she continued. So we will start the energy training from tomorrow. That would be my teachings, Ian. Not general, not from books, not from someone else. So, be prepared for more hell than you have experienced until now. She finished half of the pasta in that short time. Looks like she will have seconds, like always. We can use Soul Nova in different ways just like any other energy. We can use mana in magic as well as creation and alchemy. Aura can be used with a weapon, but some can use healing with that very aura. Spirit mana is used in spirit summoning, but one can perform magic with it. Soul Nova, in my version, can be used to create spells and strengthen physical as well as astral bodies. She said with the last slurping of pasta. She said it casually, but I knew from those words that it was time for me to learn what was hers. To learn the fraction of her true knowledge and something that belonged to her. It was her point of view, and one day, I will have to find my own path with this energy, just like magic and archery. But I would accept her teachings with all my being. Those were invaluable, and my greed for knowledge wouldn't allow me not to learn that. A mind filled with the same thoughts, I continued listening to her point about my strength and weaknesses from the last fight so I could work on them. Her phase was faster than anything I would expect from a teacher, but she could do it because it was me learning from her. Even if I didn't want to, I would remember everything she would say, and I was thankful for that. She was teaching me as much as she can in the time we were learning aside from playing and having fun. Maybe there was a reason she was doing it or maybe not, but I loved this grandma of mine. She was a cool person, and if I can, I wanted her to go with me to my house, to my family, and have her there. Maybe I can talk to her about that? We have a lot of time together anyway, so no need to rush. Okay, all set. I breathed a happy sigh and sat down for the breakfast. The morning was quiet and Grandma was playing in the garden with seals, so they will be here soon. It had been some time since we started the training she mentioned, and it had been proving quite effective. This training that focused on the soul was an amazing one. I did not understand the meaning of the astral body and all, but as I listened to her and read things about it, it fascinated me more than ever. Things were going slowly and the same way they had always been, despite her warning of hellish training. Yes, I felt like I was dead every weekend after our spar session, as she had started doing stuff. Like she would start attacking, use some normal magic that God knows how reached tier 4. She attacked me with fast attacks, punches that shook my insides, spells that really hurt, and she did all these as if this was an actual fight. She really was ruthless. But I liked it. I liked this real training instead of the past where she just stood there and I had to attack with whatever I had. And she definitely did those things with different motives in her mind. Like I would have never done such thorough planning, something I specialized in these fights. I might never have tried deciphering the skill like barrier, or never thought of things that I did in that fight. She really was something else. The knowledge, wisdom, and experience she had were unbelievable, even for someone like me. She even knew about my dark past and she just threw it in a corner, never mentioning it. I had even told everything to Seals, but her reaction was more of sympathy and sadness that she wasn't with me at those times. Such red things were nothing from her point of view. Well, I understood her perfectly. She wasn't a human, after all. She was a far more outstanding creature than the rotten human race. Well, not everyone was rotten among humans, like my special family. I had read the letter my uncle sent the first time, and that thing was a really interesting method. It was a question paper style thing where you solve the question to get the special answer from the formula that comes after the answer. That thing really impressed me. I felt like I was giving the first exam in this new life. Though it was difficult, and it even took an entire month to solve that with normal formulas I found in the books in the library, I was successful in figuring it out. And it was pretty easy if I did it with different formulas mentioned in the other books in the library. This theoretic part was actually amazing, and I liked it. I liked it so much that it immersed me in it. For the next months, I had to prepare my own letter. It was simple after I understood all the aspects of this particular type of question. It was more complex than the higher-level math problems I had studied in my past life, but it was, in the end, math. People in this world were more advanced in mathematics and scientific prospects, but everything was part of the magic. Well, they knew what they were doing, so giving it different names wouldn't change anything. This world was so advanced that if I searched some old books, I would even find the proof of relativity theory and higher rocket science. They also included quantum science in the high magic area. All that was difficult, but things didn't just end there. This world had more than that, and if people of my past world come here, they would cry to gain this knowledge. Well, I was more fortunate to have such magnificent library filled with countless books. Though barriers were blocking every section, I did not need to pass the general area with almost some 100,000 books. Yes, and I wasn't exaggerating. That space was special and even had sections floating in the air. I hadn't even passed through some 1,000 books in all my time here. It seemed almost impossible that I would want to pass through this area, which was apparently the smallest. Like hell, people. Just how big was that place? Well, I didn't know that, and I didn't actually want to know that. I had enough access that I can have all the knowledge possible and beyond that. I had already prepared a question paper for them, or a voicemail in the form of 15 papers this time. That was better, as I can say actually as much as I wanted in that paper, and they will be able to hear my voice more. Well, I didn't know if they knew this was possible or if one can make voices in the form of magic questions, but, well, creating a voice recording magic circle and then decoding it should be doable, right? Like, it wasn't like I was the first one to create something like this. I had seen some old books, and they had ideas of creating whole holographic scenes with these types of magic formulas, and I was pretty sure I can make something like that. But, well, my brain won't be sharp enough to decode something on that level. I was just a big hard drive, after all. I can remember all those things, but solving them was a unique thing altogether. So, maybe I can make some beautiful scenes from the famous masterpiece arts of my previous life and the gorgeous things I had seen in this forest. That would be a fun activity for the free time I might have in the future. Well, my family was a special one. My grandfather was the Golden Hammer, a king-ranked knight and one of the 18 people that had reached that rank on this continent. He was special among them, and I had always wished of meeting him at least once. He was a king-ranked knight as well as a member of the House of Prism. Well, every one of the kings and queens was a member as well as powerful knights with great potential. Being a member of that place meant many things, and it was an organization neutral to the entire continent. He was an amazing person, respected on the entire continent, and someone who believed in using the strength one had in the protection of others. I liked that thing about him, and I really wanted to just meet with him one day and have a spar. And that very person was my grandfather. I couldn't express my emotions after knowing this, and even in the letter, he was as warm as I knew. But my grandmother was as warm as him in that letter. My grandmother, his wife, and the one who owned the title of the Marchioness of the Empire. Yes, Grandpa was called Marquis, but he couldn't truly associate with just the Empire. But my grandma, the patriarch of a true noble household that has been part of the Empire for a long time, was someone as famous as my grandfather. She was the master and ruler of Maris Archipelagos, the western border of the great Roxana Empire. Well, she was an amazing person, and, She was gorgeous. Beauty ran in our family in true meaning, not that I didn't like it. Though for different reasons, my grandmother was someone I respected as much as a grandfather. They were one thing, but the rest of my family was special too. I praised my uncle as a genius magic engineer, someone who made outstanding inventions. He and Dad had created the thing that informed them about my current condition, and they had used the thought of a cardiograph in making it. Well, that was amazing, and from the whole page he took in that small 6-page letter, I knew he was more of a crybaby than a dad. Why was my family filled with male crybabies and powerful ladies? Well, thankfully it wasn't true for my second uncle, who was a normal viscount and a lawyer. He was a dignified male in this big family where his wife and my second aunt was the same as my first uncle. She was a worrywart like him, and she also took almost a full page from the letter, leaving a small part for my second uncle. Well, he was surprisingly good at expressing his emotions through words. Maybe the reason such a special person as Auntie was with him. My first aunt, and someone as dignified and alluring as my mom. Or maybe more. She was a perfect example of a noble lady, and she was gorgeous in all aspects. She was not as good with words as my second uncle, but her words carried genuine emotions. That was a unique kind of writing and maybe something special about her. The butler grandpa didn't write anything, but I know that he was an origin skill user like me, so I wanted to meet him soon. Then there are those three. I sighed while taking a sip of my choco milk. My 3 siblings. My angelic Anna, big sister Carla, and little brother Alf. Those 3. I never thought having siblings would feel this unique. Well, I had been alone all the time in my previous life, and now I had 3 unique people to call brother and sister. I knew my little sister was special, but after meeting them and from the letters that had the first words of challenge, I understood the other 2 were more like me. My cute little Anna was the most normal kid in that house, and maybe that was the reason everyone loved her more than us. I was confident everyone loved her the most. I just know. I would love her more too. Like, why not? Why would someone love such a cute baby less, or even equal the troublemakers? I wouldn't believe it. She was more loved than anyone, and she had to take care of that on her own. And those 2 who first challenged me before asking what the hell had happened to me. My big sister, Carla, who Grandpa praised as a sword genius, had quite a rough mouth. Unlike her mom or dad, she was like those truly rough-speaking knight ladies from novels, and that was her charm. I was also one to use that kind of speech, but I had nowhere to speak about such things. I had no one to speak that way to, but maybe I can have open conversations with her while crossing weapons? I wasn't afraid of close combat anymore anyway, so she would definitely lose at the end. But the fight was more expectation-filled than that. And last was my little brother Alf, and one of those so-called geniuses of magic I had mentioned many times. If I was the storage drive, he was the supercomputer for magic. From what Grandpa said, he was already able to use Tier 3 spells while being a Tier 2 mage at the age of 9. Like my script magic, he had his own fold magic that increased the power of a spell many folds after reprocessing the spell before release. He understood magic in the true meaning, and he was, more surprisingly, a quadra-elemental mage, having an affinity for fire, water, earth, and wind. Was I the protagonist born in a family of geniuses or something? He was definitely strong, but I knew he was still not strong enough to defeat me. He had no physical strength like Carla, and Carla had no magical abilities like him. There might be a chance if they worked together with a nigh-perfect sync like those chibi assassins. Those 2 were genius, and I would beat them nonetheless. I was afraid of what might happen after that. But, well, that was for the future me to think. Oh, you started without us? Just when I finished my glass of milk, the familiar voice of my dear master and Grandma entered my ears. I just started, Grandma. Seals, please join me. I brought the orange flower, Seals. Fresh and sweet. I smiled as I pointed at the flower to my gorgeous butterfly partner. Thank you, Master. She was as energetic this morning as always. Flaying down on the flower, she started her meal without any further talk. Looked like she was really excited today. Master just stood in her place and looked at me with a warm smile that found the current me cute. I was confused about what she was smiling for, But then, noticing my cluelessness, she walked toward me, standing before me and shaking her head with a smile. Finding me even cuter than before, she picked up a napkin and wiped the choco milk mustache. "You little baby, why are you so adorable?" She praised me and patted my head with her special hands. But this time, a pink blush of embarrassment painted my face. "Grandma, I knew that. I tried to make up something in the face of this awkward moment. What kind of milk was it? I didn't even notice it on my face." "Ho ho ho." She laughed at my predicament and caressed my cheeks. "Let's eat, my dear pink. Cute, funny, darling." After making fun of me like that, she just sat down and started her breakfast. My beautiful morning was ruined by this damn milk. I just buried my face in the dining table, not realizing this whole behavior was even more entertaining to her. Damn sweet milk. Though it was really good, damn. What better way to start the day if not by being tested by your alluring grandma?